Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I declare this briefing session open at 6:30 p.m. The proceedings of the briefing session are electronically recorded in accordance with the council's recording and live streaming of council meetings council policy, except for those matters of a confidential nature. The guide in determining those matters of a confidential nature shall be in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Please note, briefing sessions are audio recorded and audio live streamed only in accordance with the council's policy. Recordings will also be made available on the city's website following the meeting. The official record of the meeting will be the written minutes kept in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and any relevant regulations. Members of the public gallery are reminded it is a requirement under the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2013 to act in a courteous and respectful manner when in the council chamber. You are asked to show respect to anyone who is exercising their right to ask questions of the council and or deliver public statements. I ask that respect to such people wherever they are. I ask that respect extend to such people wherever they are on city premises while waiting for or having taken their opportunity to ask questions or deliver a public statement. Under the local law, a person must not create a disturbance by interfering with the orderly conduct of proceedings. Using personal electronic devices to record anyone or their meeting is also prohibited under the city's local law. And I'd like to remind members of the public to show proper respect to the city's elected members and staff during these proceedings. The next item of business tonight is declarations of interest. Do I have any councillors or staff who have any declarations on any items on tonight's agenda? Councillor Joondalup.
Thank you. Through you. Yes, just for 12.18. I am Vice Patron of the Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club.
Thank you. And I presume that's an interest that may affect impartiality?
Apologies, yes.
Thank you. I have also received an interest from Councillor Fishwick. It's an interest that may affect impartiality for item 1211, Corporate Sponsorship Program 2025. It's an interest that may affect impartiality as Councillor Fishwick is a member of the Masters Swimming Club. Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, sorry, for item 12.10, Strategic Workforce Plan, I have an interest that may affect impartiality, which is that I have a family member employed by the city.
Thank you. Are there any other interests? Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Interests that may affect impartiality for item 11.1, which is a Birch Park footpath and upgrades. Two residents of Birch Place, Greenwood, are known to me.
Thank you, Councillor May. Councillor Pizzey.
Yeah, similar of impartiality. I have people who are known to me who live at K Place and back on to the park there.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzey. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have for item 12.1, in which I've consulted for residents within the item list in the City of Joondalup, and also, which I will fill in now for item 12.19, the petition requests for abandoning construction of footpaths in Birch Place and Carew Place, as I have been involved in the petition.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Joondalup.
Apologies, Mayor. I have one more for 12.11 as well. Impartiality. Members of the Joondalup Wolves senior execs are known to me.
Thank you, Councillor Joondalup. Are there any other further declarations of interest from staff or elected members? It appears not. The next item of business is deputations. Deputations requests are to be made in writing and addressed to the Mayor. A period of 10 minutes is to be allotted to each deputation tonight. Each deputation shall not exceed 5 persons in number, and only 3 of those persons will be able to address the elected members and respond to questions at any time. I've received a list of deputations, so we will go through them in order. The first item on our deputations list is for item 12.2, the small bar additions at O'Mara Boulevard in Iluka, and that's the deputation with William Carroll, Jennifer Carroll, John Mead, and Lou Whelans, if you'd like to come forward.
Good evening, Mr Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Will Carroll. I'm the chair of the Strata Company representing the Joondalup apartments, which are located directly adjacent to Bar Olay. With me are John Mead, who is the Treasurer of the Strata Company, Jennifer Carroll and Lou Whelans. We are here on behalf of the apartment owners who signed the petition to Council raising concerns regarding the proposal to establish an alfresco dining area and expanded storage area in the upper level car park. Myself, John and Jennifer will be talking to the matter this evening. Just to provide some context, Joondalup consists of 23 apartments located between 1 and 50 metres from the proposed alfresco area. This is the first opportunity residents have had to comment or raise concerns about the operation of the bar. The proposed location is an established car park with no aesthetic qualities, surrounded entirely by commercial elements and concrete. So our concerns fall into 3 key areas: process, impact on residential amenity, loss of privacy, noise and disturbance. So to begin with, although a small bar is a permitted land use in a commercial zone and therefore did not require approval, the original application also proposed a new storage area, a bull sculpture and a signage. And for reasons unknown, these were removed from the determination and did not form part of the approval, yet all were constructed regardless. It raises the question why we have a process if retrospective approvals are granted after the fact, and it appears easier to seek forgiveness rather than approval. So I'll now hand over to Jennifer, who will outline the specific amenity concerns, followed by John, and I'll conclude afterwards.
Thanks, Will, and good evening. On behalf of the Joondalup petitioners, I would like to address the significant noise impacts anticipated by the proposal. Residents are already experiencing noise from the bar in its current form, particularly on weekends, afternoons and evenings. Given that some apartments are separated from the bar by only metres, this is already challenging. The introduction of an outdoor alfresco area will amplify this dramatically. Elevated and exposed, noise will travel freely, exactly at the times when residents reasonably expect quiet enjoyment in their homes. More specifically, 2 apartments share a wall with the bar and proposed alfresco. Living rooms, outdoor areas and bedrooms face directly onto this space. Normal evening activities such as dining outdoors or sleeping will be impacted. When the owners purchased off the plan more than 6 years ago, the complex was zoned for restaurants, not bars or pubs. We now have 2 bars, Burrow Lay and the Aluka pub. An alfresco bar on the rooftop car park is well beyond anything residents could have reasonably anticipated. History also shows that the original approvals can represent the thin end of the wedge, with conditions gradually shifting over time until what is permitted is far removed from what was originally approved. This erodes our confidence in the planning process. Residents have been patient, supportive and reasonable towards businesses in the complex. However, this proposal crosses a threshold. The city's own planning policy requires developments to maintain reasonable amenity and minimise adverse impacts on adjoining properties. Petitioners strongly believe this proposal does not meet this test. Thank you for the opportunity to raise these concerns. I'll hand over to John.
Good evening. Thank you, Will and Jen, and thank you to the Council for hearing us. I'd like to focus on the storage area currently constructed without approval or consultation. It has been used as a dumping and storage point for empty bottles, empty kegs, cleaning chemicals and equipment, and general waste. From a residential balcony, this structure is an eyesore and demonstrates a lack of consideration for adjoining properties. Additional concerns include the noise generated when bottles and kegs are emptied into bins, often late at night. Residual liquids creating potential health risks and confidence gaps, given a history of retrospective approval. How can residents rely on assurances from the future use? We agree that the current storage area structure must be removed, however, support a relocated storage area if it's placed well away from residential apartments, used solely for low noise storage of barrels and proper consideration of aesthetics, ensuring it blends with the complex rather than the metal structure that sits beneath my balcony at the moment. To be clear, residents are not opposed to the bar operating in its current approved form. They simply ask for consideration, consultation, respect for their right to quiet enjoyment of their homes. And I'll just hand back now to Will now to conclude. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So to conclude, I just want to point out, in fact, we've got a number of residents here just behind these guys who represent the sort of concerns that they've got to actually turn up this evening just to show a bit of support. So to conclude, the planning history of this precinct shows a consistent pattern with pubs and restaurants such as the Aluka and Bar Lole. The pattern is you secure approval, you disregard conditions, then you expand the operations through appeals and incremental amendments over time. So should council support the current recommendations, we anticipate this proposal will progress to DAP, which is the Development Assessment Panel for those people who may not be aware. It'll be adjusted and then be revisited again in the near future until the original scope is effectively unrecognisable. So it's by stealth and creep that the proponents get what they want over time. And this is against a backdrop where core conditions were openly disregarded from day one on the previous pub, leaving residents with little confidence that new conditions will be respected, monitored or enforced. So to conclude, thank you for allowing us to present. We request that the council carefully consider the amenity impacts, uphold reasonable planning expectations and ensure adjoining residential properties are appropriately protected. We remain, as John's mentioned, committed to working constructively with all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from elected members for our deputants tonight? We've got some time left. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. You mentioned that you look out from your balcony over into the storage area. I was wondering if you could describe to council if there's any smell that comes from that and what it's like for you.
It's not such the smell, it's the noise and it's the sight. I mean, it's basically made out of what you make metal fencing out of round houses. It's just been bolted together. There's a gate on it from the car park. We can just look down on this, like cleaning brushes piled up. There's big bins everywhere. There's, well, metal-looking things that smash bottles. And on a night time, they just wheel the bottles out, tip them in, they get smashed. So this is 11, 12 o'clock at night. You just got glass breaking. And my balcony's there, the storage area's there. There's literally 2 or 3 metres between the two, and we look straight down into it. I don't know what happens in the bins. I don't know what they've got in there. I don't know what chemicals they're dumping in there. Don't get any smell. The only smells I get is from the kitchen wafting over from when the chimneys pipe out all the kitchen smells. But no, it's an eyesore, and there's been no consideration. They made no attempt to link it into the actual building itself. It just, you know, the whole complex is white, and this is like a grey metal fence that looks very temporary and very ugly. And I thought there were rules that you couldn't actually build those things on adjoining walls to other neighbours and things, but they did it. We objected. I think they were told it wasn't allowed, but it's still there, and it's still being used as it has been used all the time. No effort's been made to move it or change it or do anything with it.
Thank you. I think we'll need to stop it there and we'll move to the next deputation. So thank you for presenting. Our next deputant is Nanette Brammer, who is also speaking on item 12.2, the small bar in 98 O'Mara Boulevard, Aluka.
Nanette Brammer, 62 Blackpool Promenade in Aluka. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Congratulations on your appointment, Mr. Daniel Kingston, and new councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the residents of Aluka regarding item 12.2, small bar additions at 98 O'Mara Boulevard, Aluka, known locally as Bar Ole. This deputation represents the voice of nearby residents who have been living with the escalating impacts of this business since it took over what was originally an office tenancy When first approved, no one anticipated that an office space would one day become a licensed bar with outdoor drinking, amplified music and late night activity taking place only metres from people's homes. 14 submissions were made during consultation, 13 objecting and 1 of support. 1 objection was signed by 13 residents, showing the depth and concern within the community. Residents are not anti-business, they simply want fair and respectful coexistence with commercial operators and the protection of their residential amenity, something the Iluka Structure Plan clearly promises. Noise and amenity impacts, noise and light pollution. The proposed alfresco would place an outdoor drinking area directly adjacent to residential apartments. The retrospective storage area, already constructed without approval, sits against the same boundary wall. From the residents' balconies and windows, the distance is only a few metres. Noise from bottles, kegs, deliveries travels straight into the living rooms and bedrooms. Even if acoustic matting is added, the activity noise, voices, laughter, clinking glassware cannot be insulated outdoors. This is suburbia, it's not a city entertainment strip. Allowing an alfresco here would fundamentally change the character of the precinct and erode the peaceful enjoyment of the neighbouring homes. Residents report regular disturbances already, including after-hours bottle handling and delivery noise from the storage area. Adding an alfresco component would amplify these impacts. Parking and traffic. You will see some pictures coming by as they show the impact of parking and also the tenants that live close to this non-approved storage area. So the rooftop car park was designed for mixed-use tenancies, not for multiple licensed premises. It now serves Barwale upstairs, another big pub below, 24-hour gym. A large childcare centre, a medical centre, an IGA supermarket and other small tenancies in the complex. Next door to Barwale is a medical centre, and during the day, the parking bays that Barwale wants to convert into an alfresco area are regularly used by patients. These bays are positioned close to the entrance of the medical centre, which is especially important for elderly or less mobile visitors. Taking these bays away for outdoor dining would directly reduce accessibility for patients and undermine the intended share-use parking arrangement of the centre. The development has already a parking shortfall of 7 bays, and this proposal removes 4 more bays. While the report suggests the loss is minor for residents and other tenants, it is far from minor. On busy nights, cars overflow into surrounding streets, driveways are blocked, and residents' visitors can't park. A rooftop car park may appear available on paper, but in reality it's often full, especially during evening and weekend peaks, when the bars and gym are busiest. The loss of these key bays for daytime medical users and nighttime patrons alike only adds to the cumulative parking strain. Visual impact and non-compliance. The storage enclosure is not an attractive or appropriate addition. It was built without approval, using a car bay meant for public use, and it sits hard up against the residential boundary. From the street and from the residents' balconies, it looks industrial, out of character with the surrounding development and inconsistent with the high-quality design of the Iluka Structure Plan seeks to maintain. Allowing this retrospective structure to remain effectively rewards non-compliance. It sends the wrong message to other business owners that it's acceptable to build first, ask later, and expect approval with conditions afterwards. The business owner is an experienced operator with other licensed venues in the city of Joondalup and would be fully aware of the planning requirements. What we are seeing is a pattern of gradual expansion, a Trojan horse approach that has gone well beyond what residents expected or were ever consulted about. The premises started as an office, then became a restaurant, then a small bar, added signage and an unapproved storage area, a ball outside, and now seeks an alfresco bar space. Each new addition might seem minor on its own, but together they're changing the nature of this centre, from a friendly neighbourhood dining spot into a late-night entertainment venue. Residents feel frustrated and disheartened, as every new approval seems to move the goalposts further away from the calm suburban environment they were promised. To be clear, residents are not opposed to the restaurant, a local business, succeeding. In fact, they've supported it from the start. What they object to is the steady escalation of activity that is now disturbing the community's peace, taken over shared parking and encroaching on their amenity. We also recognise that the operator is experienced and has successfully developed several venues across the city of Joondalup. A vibrant alfresco small bar might be a wonderful fit for the Joondalup city centre, where it would help reactivate the entertainment precinct and attract a suitable audience. Residents just want the business to stay within reasonable limits, as originally intended, without further expansion or encroachment. The residents acknowledge that the city's planning officers do not support the alfresco, and we thank them for recognising that it would harm the amenity of the area. However, residents do not support the retention of the storage area either. Even with matting and noise management plan, the storage area's location pressed against the boundary wall of private homes makes it unsuitable. A better solution would be to maybe relocate the storage and waste handling to the internal basement or ground level service zone, away from the residential walls. Aluka Structure Plan number 26 makes clear that commercial development must be of a low scale and not detrimental to the amenity of adjoining residential areas. The proposal fails that test on every count. It increases noise activity besides dwellings. It removes parking needed for all users of the complex. It introduces visual clutter and non-compliant structures. It sets a precedent that undermines confidence in the planning process. Approving either the alfresco or the existing storage structure would contradict the spirit and intent of the structure plan that erode public trust in fair, consistent decision-making. On behalf of the community, we respectfully request that Council refuse the alfresco addition on grounds of noise and light pollution, amenity impact and inconsistency with the Aluka Structure Plan. Reject retention of the storage area in its current form and require it to be removed or relocated away from the residential boundary. Enforce compliance with existing planning approvals and ensure that no further encroachments or retrospective changes are accepted at this stage. Undertake a review of the site's parking capacity and trading conditions for both licensed venues to ensure public safety and amenity are properly managed. Mayor and councillors, the people who live beside this centre are your residents and ratepayers. They have invested their savings, their time and their trust in the City of Joondalup's planning framework, a framework that promises protection of residential amenity. They now find themselves living beside what is fast becoming a late-night entertainment hub without adequate parking, noise control or visual screening. They are not asking for special treatment, they're asking for the rules to be applied consistently and fairly. Please uphold the City's refusal of the alfresco area and go further, require removal of the relocation of the storage area to restore proper compliance, amenity and fairness. This would demonstrate that the City of Joondalup stands by its residents and its own planning principles. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Brammer. Are there any questions from elected members to our deputant tonight? It appears not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next deputation is from Mr. Regan Cake from Dynamic Planning and Developments, and Mr. Ryan Esquiland, Hillary's Beach Club, also on item 12.2, the small bar in Omara Boulevard, Aluka.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and city staff. As you said, my name's Regan Cake from Dynamic Planning and Developments, and Ryan was going to join me tonight, but I don't think he's made it. I'm here to speak in support of the alfresco additions to Bar Ole at the Aluka Plaza Shopping Centre. In reviewing the agenda item prepared by the City's officers, we have noted that there is a recommendation to support the retrospective storage space, but refuse the proposed alfresco area due to the amenity impacts related to noise. Given the lack of support for the proposed alfresco area, this will be the focus of my deputation tonight, and I kindly request that councillors resolve to also approve this component of our application at the council meeting in 2 weeks' time. One of the first points I would like to make is that the City of Joondalup and its councillors have made concerted efforts to support and encourage alfresco dining within the city by modifying the approval framework to create exemption pathways and remove fees associated with alfresco permits. This has resulted in the preparation of the city's alfresco spaces guidelines and an update to the city's alfresco spaces local planning policy, which includes the statement that says, the city recognises the benefits provided by alfresco spaces, which could contribute to the activation and vibrancy of the public realm. This support encouraged Bar Ole to pursue the subject application, and whilst we acknowledge the location of the alfresco space differs from a typical Main Street type alfresco location, it will still achieve the same intent by providing dining flexibility for the community attending Bar Ole, as well as supporting a local small business and activating a parking area. I would also like to touch on and address some of the community objection to the proposed application, with a number of submissions against the proposal received during the advertising period and a number of other deputations here tonight speaking against the proposal. The Iluka Plaza development has had a long history of objection from all surrounding residents within the Iluka community through previous approval processes. And despite this objection, the centre is thriving, which has also been Bar Ole's experience since opening. With this in mind, it is our view that the submissions of objection are actually related to a minority in the community and those probably closest to the development and most impacted by it. And we feel evidence to this effect is through the 64 submissions in support of the proposed application that Bar Ole received, and I emailed to councillors ahead of time before tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, these submissions were received outside of the formal public advertising period, so aren't reflected in the schedule of submissions within the agenda tonight. In relation to the actual, the technical assessment of the proposed application that was undertaken by the city's officers, there's probably two critical points that we want councillors to have in mind when they're considering this item. The first is that the proposed parking shortfall has been supported by city staff, which was largely a result of a parking survey undertaken by Irby, a qualified traffic engineer, that demonstrated that more than sufficient parking would be available following the loss of the 4 bays that resulted from the proposal. Whilst not mentioned in the agenda, the Bar Ole staff also carried out a parking survey for a week in May and 2 weeks in July, which also had similar findings in relation to the availability of parking in the first floor parking area. The second point that the city officers acknowledge is that the proposed alfresco area complies with the relevant noise regulations, which resulted from the submission of a detailed acoustic report throughout the assessment process. This acoustic report did specify a limit of 20 patrons in the alfresco area after 7 p.m. or on the evening periods, with sort of 30 to 40 being able to be accommodated in that area during the daytime. Obviously, the management of that is quite complicated, so we're more than willing to accept a condition of 20 patrons in that area at all times, because it's much easier for a venue to manage. Despite this technical assessment, the conclusions reached by the city's officers in the agenda is that they still recommend refusal of the proposed alfresco as a result of negative amenity impacts resulting from noise. In relation to this recommendation, there are 2 main points I would like to make. Firstly, there's no statutory basis to justify the amenity impacts from noise being unacceptable, given the proposal has demonstrated compliance with the relevant noise regulations. Secondly, the properties that the city are concerned with and those closest to development are actually residential properties on commercial zone land. And the properties were constructed after the Iluka Plaza commenced operation. Given this, it isn't a typical residential neighbourhood, and residents should be somewhat aware of the potential noise that might result from a commercial development. But despite this, the noise regulations don't allow any sort of high levels of noise. They're expected to meet the same requirements as any sort of residential property, which we have demonstrated compliance with. In wrapping up, I kindly request that councillors resolve to approve the proposed alfresco area as well as the retrospective storage, and to assist in any decision making and alleviate concerns on amenity impacts. We'd be more than happy to accept conditions limiting occupancy on the alfresco to 20 patrons at all times, as well as a noise management plan or similar that details management obligations for staff and the business and requirements around setting speaker noise levels and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cake. Are there any questions we'll start with Councillor Fishwick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Cake, for your deputation. And I note from your email that I received and the other elected members received this morning, and also that you mentioned in your deputation that you've advised there's been 64 submissions supporting the proposed development that weren't received by the city during the advertised period. Now, each of those 64 submissions appear to have been prepared by by Bar Ole, citing the same rationale for supporting the proposal with a space for their name, address and signature, similar to a petition. The addresses of many of those 64 persons signing the submission supporting the proposal live in suburbs including Mullaloo, Belden, Clarkson, Ocean Reef, Burns Beach, Kinross, Wanneroo, Hillary's, Currumbine, Ridgewood, Bankshire Grove, Butler, Yanship and Joondalup. So my question is, was that those 64 submissions supporting the proposal obtained by patrons over the bar by Bar Ole?
I am relatively confident they would be customers of the business, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your time this evening. I'd just like to ask, do you live in the building?
I don't know.
No. So would you appreciate living there yourself, right next to it, if you had to put up with those sorts of noises?
I can understand that there would be a level of amenity impact that might result from living in close proximity to a commercial development, yeah.
Making it uncomfortable for the people that actually live there.
Potentially, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I do have one, which also following on from the line of questioning from Councillor Fishwick. Was there any information presented to these, I presume there were patrons who were signing these documents that appear to be similar to petitions? What other additional information was given to them at the time that they made those statements in support of the proposal? Because usually if there's a public consultation and it's on the city's website, there's a requirement for people to be informed, to have full copies of the plans, the development proposal itself. What information did they have?
I think it was mostly an overview of the proposed application from Bar Ole about what was being proposed in relation to the alfresco and the storage.
Was it the same information that was on the city's website or more of a summary?
I can't speak to exactly what was provided to each of the submitters, unfortunately.
That's all right, thank you. I'm sorry, last question, Councillor Hutton.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one question. During your deputation, you made reference to the city's alfresco policy, and you said that the policy seeks to support the activation and vibrancy of the public sphere. Do you count the car park, the upper car park, to be the public sphere, as opposed to a private building?
It is on private property, but as some other deputations admitted, it is publicly accessible, yes. It's very different to a typical Main Street environment where you would have a traditional alfresco area. I do accept that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cake. I think that appears all. Thank you. Our next deputation comes from Lisa Niblett and Marcus Niblett, and that is on item 1219, the petition to request to abandon the construction of footpaths in Birch Place and Carrow Place in Greenwood. So you can begin whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and members of the gallery. My name is Lisa Niblett, and that is my husband, Marcus Niblett, and we live at Carew Place. I'm representing my family, the 31 community members who signed the petition, and the wider community. We are requesting to abandon the proposed new footpath scope of works on Carew Place. Next, please. I just would like to give a little bit of background. As part of the city's ongoing capital works program, a new concrete pathway is being proposed along Carew Place, Greenwood. Barrels are being short. Proposed along Carew Place, Greenwood, to improve pedestrian accessibility within the local road network. The proposed works involved replacing the existing curbing and installing a 2-metre wide concrete footpath along Carew Place, which, given the street's context, seems excessively wide and unnecessary. Extending this pathway for only approximately 120 metres to connect directly to the school not only lacks clear logic, but also introduces potential hazards. Of particular concern is the pathway proximity to the area where vehicles routinely pull in to drop off children, as this design could significantly increase the risks of accidents and compromise pedestrian safety. Residents of Carew Place were not consulted before the design or approval of the footpath works. The City of Joondalup only issued letters after I raised concerns. Our community ultimately learned about the project through a comment on Facebook. Chris Jansen, Manager Engineering Services for City of Joondalup, acknowledged that the project was shared on social media before letters had been received. Next, please. Carew Place is a highly walkable street, uniquely situated within a double cul-de-sac configuration that effectively eliminates through traffic. This layout not only ensures a quiet and safe environment for residents, but also provides excellent visibility in all directions, further enhancing pedestrian safety and the overall sense of community. Pedestrian foot traffic is minimal along Carew Place. The low-demand pathway installation suggests limited return on investment and a total waste of taxpayers' money. Next, please. Carew Place features established verge vegetation, including several mature native trees providing significant shade and aesthetic value. Installation of a footpath would likely require tree pruning, verge reshaping, and soil compaction, resulting in permanent changes to the street's character. As residents, we proudly like to say, keep the green in Greenwood, and we remain committed to actively demonstrating this value in our community. Next, please. Due to the street's cul-de-sac configuration, construction would temporarily restrict driveway access and on-street parking, creating inconvenience for residents and other issues such as dust and noise. Next, please. I do not believe Carew Place has been identified as a priority corridor and provides limited strategic benefit to the broader pedestrian network. There is already a pathway in situ along Merivale Way connecting to the school, which was recently upgraded. Allocating funds to higher use areas, such as implementing traffic calming measures on Merivale Way near Greenwood School, or improved parent parking facilities would better align, I think, with Council's strategic objectives and provide greater benefit to the community than proceeding with works on Carew Place. Next, please. Lastly, community, my favourite. Informal consultation with residents indicated negative sentiment towards the proposed pathway, primarily due to concerns about loss of verge aesthetics, increased foot traffic close to private frontages, no evidence of traffic studies, pedestrian surveys, or community consultation to show a need for this footpath, compromised pedestrian safety at the end of the footpath by the school, poor design factor, increased street parking in Carew Place from the school parents dropping off kids, potential reduction in privacy and property value. In closing, the Carew Place resident community and I request that you please abandon the proposed installation of the footpath and keep the green in Greenwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our presenter? We'll start with Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Nesbitt, I'm just wondering, do you agree that by placing the proposed pathway in Carew Place will cause less impact on residents' properties?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your time this evening. I'd just like to know, firstly, how long have you lived in the street?
16 years.
And in that time, have you seen any children get hurt by cars or anyone hit by a car in any of that time?
Absolutely not. We actually even hold Christmas parties at the end of the road, and it's because it's so safe.
As you do in cul-de-sacs, especially around Greenwood, and nice little areas to be in. And do you see, obviously, that there is the school right next to it there? Do you see, how many children would you say you see walking through that every day on their way to school?
If I see, honestly, if I see 5, that's a lot.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions? Councillor Pizzey.
Thank you. Just a question, firstly, is it the size of the path, the 2 metres, an issue, or?
It's both. The size, yes, the 2 metre, and installing the footpath.
And just following on Councillor Chester's question, what makes Carew Place a more suitable street?
A more suitable street?
I think it was asked, another street a more suitable place for the footpath? And you said yes.
No, there's already one in existence, Merivale Way, that connects to the school.
Okay, so that was the question?
No.
That there wasn't another street that was more appropriate? No?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm just around a 2 metre path. Can I confirm if at 2 metres, does that include the actual curb? Because I understood it was 1.8 was the standard.
No, they stipulated in the letter 2 metres.
Okay.
And that's excessive because I've actually done measurements from all the other footpaths and at most 1.5 at most.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a school footpath and that's the footpath going around Merivale Way as well.
Great. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Any last questions? No, it appears not. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Our next presentation is Mr. Michael Diamond, Rick Hurst, and Alex Madden. That's also for item 1219, petition request to abandon the construction of the footpath in Birch Place and Carrow Place, Greenwood. Thank you whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Kingston and councillors, for hearing us out. Myself and Rick will be addressing the council. Mr Madden will not be. In regard to our street, Birch Place, again, the same issues that occurred with Carew occurred with us in the sense that we weren't consulted about any of this. We just received a letter in regard to it with a couple of weeks' notice to the start of the works. Fortunately, my compatriot in the street, Rick, I'm at 15 Birch Place, jumped on it as a thing. What on earth are we talking about here? 2 metres seemed excessive. I went for a wander around the suburb and there was a mix of footpath widths, and I wondered whether the 2 metres was to represent the fact that we were trying to get gophers and skateboards and electric, whatever they call them these days, off the streets and onto the footpaths, which seemed to me a little bit contraindicated if we're including pedestrians in that mix. It's a very short street, Birch Place, and this footpath seems a very excessive addition to the footpath network within the city. I was wondering if anybody had actually considered the access that you were asking for. It was to link Allenswood Road through to Merivale to facilitate access to the primary school. And I wondered why the footpath simply hadn't been connected from the alleyway that links Merivale to Birch Park and also the alleyway that links Birch Park to Merivale. Why the footpath couldn't simply be straight through the middle of the park. That would, obviate any need to build a footpath in the streets and would give absolutely easy access, because I recognise that the steepness of the path from Allenswood to the park is a little bit of an issue, but that's going to be an issue whichever way you use the footpaths around that particular area. But that would be completely safe. And if the issue is safe access for pedestrians and students to Merivale to get to the primary school, that would seem a much more logical and safer option than going through any street. Secondly, I wonder if people have actually assessed Merivale as a safety issue in and of itself. If you're going to come out on Birch Place onto Merivale, Merivale is a crest, it's a hill with a crest. That crest is actually quite dangerous depending on where you are and where you're trying to cross the street. Now, if you tried to cross it at Birch Place, you face the issue of traffic coming up the hill from Blackwall Drive, heading south, because they are invisible until they come up over the crest. So for a student to cross the street, we'd need to do something about mitigating speed up the street. Now, you'd say, okay, 50 Ks, fine, 40 Ks when they hit the school lights. But the school lights are actually a fair way down the hill. So the 50 Ks and often 60 Ks And because there's very little speed mitigation on the street to begin with, there are some very speedy individuals coming up that street. And a lot of them are in those rather large four-wheel drive vehicles that don't seem to care as if the road rules don't apply to them, which is a bit of an issue. Now, the path that would link through the park onto Merivale has a similar issue coming the other way. So the crest again works against people crossing below that crest on the north side of that crest line, and traffic heading north. So it's a little bit of an issue, and I wonder whether, I don't know if the council has anything to do with the 40-kilometre limits and the lights that are put up, or whether that's a state government option, but I wonder whether those lights should actually be moved up the hill to more in line with the street that's just below the walkway that exits the park onto Merivale. For us in Birch Place, again, making one of the questions from earlier, how many students had I noticed? I've been on leave at home for the last 6 months, and from my perspective, I would see maybe half a dozen kids and a few parents walking their kids through Birch Place, taking their kids to school. Now, there are four students of the Merivale Primary School who live in our street. So, 4 of those 6 are actually the students who actually live in our street. So I kind of wonder whether it's a little bit of a furphy to say that this will facilitate access. It may, in the sense that it's, great footpath, seems to do the trick, except that there is actually very few people about to use that path. Now, maybe in 30 years, when we've chopped off all the backyards and there's all these new homes in there and, there's kids coming out of our ears, okay, maybe the footpath would make sense. But at the moment, it appears to me to be a complete waste of our time, our money, and it really does add an issue to the street that I think it would directly affect me, as I'm part of the footpaths process. So yeah, I wonder that we perhaps need a better look at what we are trying to achieve in the street. Rick.
Thanks, Mike. Mayor Kingston, councillors and staff and fellow ratepayers, my name is Rick Hurst from Birch Place in Greenwood. In around 20 years since getting to know Birch Place, I know of only 2 road incidents. One when some fool parked a car on the road opposite a driveway and someone backed into it. Footpaths won't cure stupidity. The other, only the other day, while 2 adults were talking in the middle of the road, holding a dog, a toddler escaped her mother and ran to pat the dog with them. In trying to catch and pick up said toddler, the mum knocked the kid flat. Footpaths won't cure that either. During that time, I have suffered 2 vehicle break-ins and theft from them. Criminals have multiple escape routes through Birch Park, but we have no CCTV near the park, and now you wish to make it easier for them. Moving on, comments on the report. I now understand the rationale with your 5-year plan and so on, but I have not changed my viewpoint that footpaths in Birch Place are a waste of money, unnecessary and unwanted. But I agree wholeheartedly with Mike. Crossing safety over Merivale should be addressed. I suggest considering zebra crossing markings and an extension of the school 40km/h speed zone past the walkway exit direct from Birch Park to Merivale, perhaps down to near Cade Place turn-off on Merivale, and then a short walkway along Merivale from the roadway corner of Birch Place, which is currently on the proposed plan, but we don't want the rest in Birch Place, but a little walkway there. Along the front of 27 Merivale toward a zebra crossing might be helpful in sighting a crossing better, whilst also creating a no standing zone to resolve a traffic problem of parked cars near the corner, obscuring sight of traffic for vehicles exiting Birch Place. Now, I'll add, we're appreciative of the council planning ahead, but in this modern world, given the attention most people give to things not directly affecting them, it is likely few were aware of the 5-year works program. It is suggested that the council be more proactive with marketing their future directions. People don't want to know about it if it doesn't affect them. You need to get out and bloody well tell them. You need to know this. One interesting result of the footpath issue is this. On describing the issue to a very experienced and competent retired bureaucrat, his comment was, sounds like there is someone in planning or engineering with not enough to do and money that must be spent. Now, we all know that in politics and justice, not only must the right thing be done, but it must also be seen to be done. No one will disagree with the need for kids to cross Maryvale safely. However, there's insufficient historical or likely future traffic flow through the cul-de-sacs to justify footpaths. There's direct access to Maryvale from Birch Park. Joondalup City Council have the opportunity to both do the right thing and be seen to be doing the right thing by both the kids going to school and the local residents by addressing the Maryvale hazards and leaving the cul-de-sacs alone. To continue with the project will do nothing but harm to the council reputation with local residents disadvantaged by the footpath construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst. We have the time for this deputation has expired, so thank you for your presentation. I would just like to also remind members of the public to just be careful when making deputations that they're not framed to adversely reflect on employees. Thank you for your presentation. The next item is for Ms. Michelle Kwok, who will also be presenting on item 1219. And sorry, just before we begin, I've received 2 declarations of interest, one from Councillor John Chester. It's an interest that may affect impartiality also for item 1219. It is that some of the petitioners are known to Councillor Chester. I've received a second declaration from Councillor May. It is also for item 1219. It's an interest that may affect impartiality as 2 residents of Birch Place, Greenwood, are known to Councillor May. So thank you, Ms. Kwok. When you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors. This deputation also relates to the petition to abandon construction of footpaths in Birch Place and Carew Place, Greenwood. Firstly, I would like to thank the City in providing this report in a timely manner. I do not reside in Greenwood, but I regularly visit a friend in Birch Place before she passed away this time last year. I also live in a cul-de-sac myself, in between my local primary school and the senior high school. If this passes, it could potentially set a precedent to all cul-de-sacs to have footpaths built on them. During council election, we spoke to the local residents about their concerns. Next, please. The residents received a 2-week notification about the construction of footpaths at Birch Place and Carew Place. It's listed under consultation in the report, but no actual community consultation has taken place. Next, please. This is the concept plan in the report. It illustrates the proposed locations of the footpaths. The one on top is Birch Place. The bottom one is Carew Place. At the bottom right is the Greenwood Primary School. Next, please. Let's look at Birch Place. The aim of the project is to improve connectivity between Allenswood Road and the school. We already have the existing pathway network. The red arrows showing a pedestrian access way from Allenswood Road into Birch Park, which is at the top of Birch Place. The installation of the footpath will impact on the 4 properties. It's a very small, quiet cul-de-sac. The question is, do we have enough foot traffic to warrant the construction of the footpaths? Next, please. This is Google Maps Street View, giving you a feel of the street. The end of the street to the left is Birch Park. The end of the street to the right is Maryvale Way. According to the report, The proposed pathway on Birch Place and Carroll Place will be located at the back of curb 1.8 meters wide. If that is the case, that telegraph pole will definitely be in the way. Next, please. Some residents have also invested in improving the verge to accommodate for more parking space. This footpath will be disruptive, undoing all their good work that has been put in place. The well-being of the residents needs to be taken into consideration seriously. Let's have a look at Carroll Place. Next, please. This is the concept plan for Carroll Place. The proposed footpath will be constructed opposite from the pedestrian access way from Allenswood Road on the left. This footpath will even be shorter than the last one, impacting on 2 properties. We asked the same question. Do we have enough foot traffic to warrant the construction of the footpath? Next, please. As we can see, we already have an existing pathway network from Allenswood Road to the school, red arrows indicating the pedestrian access way. The house facing west, opposite the PAWs, has the best tree canopy in Birch Place. Next, please. This photo is taken standing at the end of the PAW, facing the start of the proposed footpath. I spotted the weeds after I took the photo. As is the city's assets, the city will need to budget for weed control and maintenance of the infrastructure. This will be an additional expense to our rates. The same would apply to the footpath in question and any other footpaths in the planning. Next, please. This shows the end of the street. The yellow icon marks the end of the PAWs. It's another quiet cul-de-sac with minimal car and foot traffic. Next, please. The photo is taken on Saturday near midday. The trees are providing good shades, moderating the microclimate, and providing precious habitat and food for birds, reptiles, and insects. Will the footpath be serving a bigger purpose than the trees? Next, please. This is showing the other end of the street to Marivaux Way. There's a slight gradient on the verge. Will the footpath constructed to the back of curb 1.8 meters wide require leveling of the verge? Will they be removing the tree to make way for the footpath? If not, will that impact on the tree and the tree roots? We always talk about how important tree canopy is. And if we keep replacing lawn with concrete paths, it will just increase urban heat island effect. Replacing the living landscapes with lifeless structures does not make sense. Plants give out oxygen and taking carbon dioxide. There are more benefits in existing landscape than replacing that with a footpath. We need to take a more holistic approach. Next, please. This is Birch Place with a telegraph pole. I decided to do a survey at the school peak hour time yesterday morning from just after 8 to just after 9 a.m. The entire time, there was a grand total of 2 school children coming, as shown in the photo, coming from Allenswood Road, PAW, through the Birch Park onto Birch Place at 8:25 a.m. I did not see any other school children coming from the street. 2 cars left the street before 9 a.m. when most children are already at school. I'm afraid I did not manage to monitor Carroll Place. Next, please. This is extracted from the draft budget plan 2025 to 2026 under proposed capital expenditure. $2.7 million has been allocated for new path network. Next, please. $40,000 has been budgeted for this project, 100% coming from municipal fund. Next, please. The $40,000 also include 2 pedestrian crossings at Marivaux Way. The main concern is the footpath proposal, with 98% of the residents opposing it. In regards to the pedestrian crossings, there needs to be more discussions between local residents, the school, and council to see if that's the best option available. Next, please. Over the years, the city has received a number of petitions requesting the city to not proceed with the construction of a pathway with reasoning being as follows. The highlighted points are relevant to this proposal. Residents feel the install is not required. Foot traffic is minimal. We have established only 2 school children use Birch Place pathway network to school. It's not justifiable to construct the footpath. Not adequate notice for residents' discussion and review, with a 2 weeks notification and no community consultation in place. Negative impact on streetscapes. There's a threat to the existing amenity and investment made by residents to their improved verge. Waste of money. The priority on spending should be according to needs rather than what we think we need to cater for future growth. The future is never set in stone. Disruptions to residents' parking options, as seen previously been discussed. Street is intended for local traffic only, both vehicular and pedestrian. There's no guarantee that people from Allenswood Road who drive to the school would utilize the footpath. Many people are time poor. Cars are used because it's convenient. I agree there needs to be a shift in the car culture. I do not believe the footpaths in a cul-de-sac will make any difference in reducing the use of cars. Investment better allocated elsewhere, such as what's been said by previous speaker before. The pros and cons needed to be weighed out carefully. This project seems to be based on assumptions for future needs, which carries an element of risks without due respect to the community and is meeting strong opposition. It is not responsible fiscal management to go ahead with this project, taking into account of our current financial situation and imminent rate rise on the horizon. Last slide, please. Based on all the above, I encourage Council to apply common sense and consider option 2 to not support construction of the footpaths in the 2 locations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kwok. There's time for one short question. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Kwok, I'm looking at a page from the attachments to tonight's agenda, and I'm looking at the pathway that's prescribed by the city, leading from the PAW, which leads from Allenswood to Carew Place, and then to a proposed new pedestrian crossing. So my question to you is, do you not agree that having a prescribed path leading to a new crossing adjacent to the school might actually provide a safer outcome by directing students to that crossing?
You need to weigh out the pros and cons. I think there need to be traffic management in the Marivale way, but because there's strong objection by the residents and they are the most impacted by these projects, so we need to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kwok. While we've had our presentations, I've received 2 more declarations of interest. Both are from Councillor Vinciulo. The first is for item 12.2, which is in relation to the small bar at Aluka. It's an interest that may affect impartiality as bar ole management is known to Councillor Vinciulo. The second declaration is for item 11.2, which is the petition in relation to the proposed upgrades for Birch Park Greenwood. Again, it's an interest that may affect impartiality as a resident is known to Councillor Vinciulo. Thank you. The next item on our agenda, now that we've finished with our deputations for tonight, the next item on our agenda is public question time. We've received written questions from Ms. Gilbert from Callaroo and Ms. Kwok from Ocean Reef, and they have been provided in advance. So there is a set of procedures relating to public question time, and I ask that you follow my direction at all times. You have the opportunity to ask 2 questions, and your question should be directed to myself as chair and be asked in a polite and respectful manner. Questions asked at a briefing session must relate to a report on the briefing session agenda. So if anyone wishes to ask a public question, we'll first deal with those on the register. So the first person on the register for public question time is Ms. Faye Gilbert. If you could come down and please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Faye Gilbert, 29 Northwood Way, Callaroo. My question's about 12.18 and the answers I've received from my questions in writing. Of the 15 trees planned to be removed for this work on North Shore Drive, how many are the original Chewett trees, please?
I think we'll have Director Claassen take that question. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, none, but I will take the question on notice and just confirm that.
Thank you. About the same item as well, when the city applied for black spot funding for this project, was the construction of a car park at a black spot included in your submission?
I think we'll go to Director Claassen again.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take it on notice. Yes, I think it was, but I'll take it on notice and just confirm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Is there anyone from the public gallery who wishes to ask a question? Yes, come down, Mr. Sideris.
Yeah, Mitch Sideris, 12 Page Drive, Maloo. The response on the chewett trees planted. If a tree is planted and it's isn't it, and it's in this case it's chewett and it's native vegetation, isn't that covered by the native vegetation requirements, which would call for you to do a clearing permit and submit to DWER approval? And if so, has that been done?
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. Director Claassen.
Through Mr. Mayor, I don't think it's covered, as I've indicated to a question from a previous resident regarding the chewetts, and as such not required.
I beg to differ. Can I suggest that you go and check your
Thank you,
regulations?
Mr. No. Is there a second question, Mr. Sideris? No. Yeah. Is there anybody else from the public gallery who wishes to ask a question? If not, I declare public question time closed and we move to public statement time. There is a set of procedures relating to public statement time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You're able to make a statement for up to 2 minutes, and your statement should be directed at myself as the chair and must be polite and respectful. No questions or discussion will occur at the end of your statement, and statements made in the briefing session must relate to a report listed on the briefing session agenda. So we keep a register of those people who wish to make a statement on the briefing sessions. So I call forward first Ms. Sue North.
Sue North, 47 Parkwood Avenue, Woodvale. Good evening, Mayor and elected members. I refer to agenda item 12.9, specifically the revision of milestones to the library strategy, which have been delayed by a further 6 months. I'm passionate about public libraries, but I also understand that they need to deliver a strong return on investment for the community and contribute to the city's strategic direction. I understand that developing the right strategy takes time. I led the development of the City of Wanneroo's first library strategy. It took a year, including extensive research, analysis, benchmarking and consultation. As the manager of public library policy and strategy for the State Library, I led the successful development of a public library strategy for the state. This took 2 years and included negotiation with 139 local governments and the state government. Joondalup has now been working on a library strategy on and off for almost 5 years. As with all libraries, Joondalups face a rapidly changing environment, and it's essential that they have a clear strategy to remain relevant. Our library service here is a good one, but there are many wasted opportunities. With the right strategies well implemented, it could be and should be great. I believe our community deserves this. A strong strategic plan is vital for our libraries to build accountability and advocacy. They must demonstrate to our community and you as elected members the value that they deliver and the ways in which they positively impact lives through literacy, lifelong learning, digital inclusion, support for business and community connection. I urge you to push for an accountable and prioritised strategy delivering clear and relevant outcomes for Q4, if not Q3 of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. North. Is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to make a public statement? It appears not. In that case, I declare public statement time closed. The next item of business is apologies and leaves of absence. So I haven't received any additional leaves of absence to be applied for at the council meeting. Does anybody wish to apply for a leave of absence? Councillor Count, I know you expressed interest previously.
Yes, thank you. If I can apply today, that would be great. Thank you.
Well, are you able to tell us the dates?
Correct, sorry. That would be the 21st of November to the 1st of December.
Some of those dates fall before the council meeting, but we can approve those from the council meeting onwards.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So if we can have that ready for the meeting. Are there any other applications for leave of absence? No, it appears not. In that case, we'll move on, and that'll be dealt with at the council meeting later this month. The next item is confirmation of minutes, which will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting on Tuesday, the 25th of November. There are no announcements by the presiding member without discussion. And so we move to the identification for matters which this meeting may be closed to the public. So the following items may be dealt with behind closed doors if there's any questions on the confidential items. The first is the confidential report for item 12.5, which is the status of legal actions. And there are two reports with confidential attachments, which is items 12.15.3, which is the tender for cleaning of stormwater drainage pipe, and item 12.16.3, which is the supply and delivery of precast stormwater drainage products. So if no one has any, does anyone have any questions on the confidential attachments for those items? No. All right, so we'll try and keep the meeting open if there's discussions on those, but if anyone wishes to discuss those items or the confidential attachments, if they could just let me know before it happens so we can close the meeting. It's moving on to petitions. We have received two petitions which will be presented at the next ordinary meeting. The first is in relation to keeping cats controlled and confined to their premises to avoid further environmental impact on wildlife and neighbours. We've had 35 signatures to that petition. The second petition is in relation to the proposed upgrades for Birch Park Greenwood, including the construction of footpaths. That is a 30-signature petition and will be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting. Are there any other petitions from elected members? No, it appears not. So the submitted petitions will be checked for validity, and if validated and everything's okay, they'll be presented at the ordinary meeting of the 25th of November. Moving then to the report section of tonight's agenda, we have presentations on item 12.2, which is the small bar, and item 12.17, which is the strategic financial plan. So moving on to the reports, we will do them all sequentially. Actually, no, we'll do those ones which there's been presentations from first, and then we'll go through the order of them sequentially. So we'll deal first with item 12.2, which is the small bar in additions in Iluka. So we will go to the presentation from the Director for Planning, and then we'll go to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider a proposal to add a storage area and an alfresco area to a small bar at the Iluka Plaza, which we've heard from a number of people this evening. I'll do my best not to cover old ground and hopefully just shed a bit further light on the city's position and its recommendation. But by way of brief background, the Iluka Plaza was first approved in 2019. And it's located in the suburb of Iluka on the corner of Callis Avenue, O'Mara Boulevard and Burns Beach Road. The plaza is part of the broader Iluka local centre, and it includes a mix of commercial tenancies over 2 floors. It shares its northern boundary with a 23 apartment building and a 13-unit townhouse development, and the small bar is located on the upper floor in the northwest corner. For the application before Council, the City assessed the proposal against the key objectives and development standards of the relevant planning frameworks, in particular the Iluka structure plan, which was referred to earlier. We reviewed technical reports submitted with the application, and we've also considered the feedback received from the community during our consultation that we ran in June and July. Both additions are external to the existing tenancy and would remove 4 car bays. 2 of those bays are impacted by the storage area and 2 are impacted by the alfresco area. After reviewing the parking across the site, we also considered the varied trading hours of the different tenancies that make up the Iluka Plaza, and we also considered the outcome of the applicant's parking survey. The City is comfortable the loss of bays can be managed with those that would remain on site. We also looked at the amenity impacts. For the storage area, we believe these can be addressed through conditions requiring rubber matting, soft closing gate, and a noise management plan. And the intent of the noise management plan, reflecting on some of the comments made in this evening's deputations, would be to dictate what could be stored in that area and when it could be utilised. And there would be some limitations on what could be stored there because the area is unable to provide drainage or a hose access to be able to provide a washdown area that would be suitable for other types of waste storage. The alfresco area raises more concern for the City with relation to amenity. The applicant's acoustic report does show compliance with noise regulations can be achieved, but the capacity of the alfresco would need to be halved after 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday and then all day on Sunday to do so. And whilst compliance can be achieved, and addressing a particular point that was raised during one of the deputations, there is previous decisions by the State Administrative Tribunal which has established that amenity considerations under planning law are separate from compliance with environmental noise standards. And what this means is that compliance with the noise regulations doesn't always equal an acceptable amenity impact in a planning sense. So in this instance, the alfresco would sit in the upper level parking area right next to the apartment development, close to balconies of some apartments and the communal spaces as well. Given this, the City believes noise and activity from the alfresco would likely cause an unreasonable impact on residential amenity for those next door. This conflicts with a key objective of the Iluka structure plan, which aims to protect the amenity of adjoining owners and residential properties in the locality. So in consideration of this, and for the reasons set out in the report, the City recommends a partial approval of the application, being approval of the storage area subject to conditions and exclusion of the alfresco area from the approval. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll move to questions from councillors. Councillor Fishwick first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I note that when the recycling truck is coming down my street and emptying bins, the noise of bottles and broken glass is quite loud. So is it possible to relocate the storage area into the undercover parking area as suggested by Ms Bremer in her deputation this evening?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It may be possible that it's not something the City has investigated or I believe discussed with the applicant at this stage. We have focused on the application and the proposal that's in front of us. What I could respond to, though, I think when it would come down to if Council were to approve the storage area in its current location, I think there would be limitations that would be imposed on through the noise management plan that would certainly control if bottles could be stored or tipped into waste bins in that area, or if they are able to, when they would be able to. But to your question as to whether or not they could be relocated downstairs, it's not something that we've focused on or give any consideration to at the moment for this application.
Councillor.
I have a follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible to have that discussion with the proponents? Because my view is maybe there's an alternate to approve that in the undercover area. So I would be appreciated if that could be reviewed.
Director?
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, happy to take that suggestion and question on notice, and we can investigate that, discuss it with the applicant, and then provide some information for elected members.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
We'll go to Councillor O'Neill and then afterwards Councillor Hill. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just really quickly, I'd like to ask the City in relation to the storage area. Is there, being that obviously bars have, you know, bleachers and things like that and beers and bottles and stuff, I'm just wondering in terms of that storage area, has the City considered the pollution that would be on the floors and things like that, and what sort of clean-up methods would be used to keep that in a respectable condition, firstly?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it is something that the City's given consideration to. I think it would be fairly limited as to what could be stored in that storage area, and I would imagine it would have to be effectively a dry storage area, and so there's some limitations on that area in that they're unable to provide drainage there. They're unable to provide a hose cock, which would allow you to connect a hose to wash down the area. So there would be, I guess, a curtailing of what they could store there, so it would be quite limited. So to your point as to storing bleachers or other sorts of cleaning liquids, I imagine they would need to be stored elsewhere.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just following on that. So, but obviously, things like that do happen. So if that was to be the case and there was some sort of hazardous materials or something, I'm not saying like asbestos or anything, but a hazardous liquid or something was stored there, who monitors that? Do the residents have to monitor that themselves, or how does that work?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Like any condition of planning approval, the onus is on the applicant and the owner to adhere to their obligations. The City does respond to concerns raised, and the City does also, at times, when resources allow, undertake its own investigations as to whether or not an owner or an operator is complying with their conditions of approval. But we are certainly supported through the community raising concerns with the City on specific items that we go and investigate.
Okay, just finally, if I could, I'd like to ask the City is it possible to vote on these two separately? For instance, essentially one for the alfresco and one for the storage area, so councils may choose which ones they wish to approve and which ones they wish to deny, if somebody wishes to deny both of those.
Director, do you wish to go through how the officer's recommendation is structured?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, at the moment, the officer recommendation is structured so it recommends approval for the storage area only, with subject to some conditions, and then it does make the point that the approval does not relate to the proposed alfresco area. I'm certainly happy to work with you, Councillor O'Neill, over the next week or so to develop an alternate or a couple of different alternates that might be structured differently. So it might be structured along the lines of it's an approval for the storage area and approval for the alfresco area separately, but then they could be portioned off on the evening to be voted on separately. But as I said, happy to work with you and talk through the different options.
Okay, thank you, Director Lee. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I'm seeking clarification from Director Lee regarding the City's recent alfresco policy changes and whether such policy was contemplated to apply to the upper storey car park of this commercial development. Will this area fall into the category of the public realm? Thank you.
Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. The City's alfresco policy and our guidelines that Council have recently adopted are focused on public realm and streetscapes, and so by definition of that, it is in public spaces, so intending to be on verges, in road reserves and the like, rather than on private property. Having said that, there are instances where alfrescos are built and developed on private property, but our alfresco policy and guidelines wouldn't apply in those instances in the same way we haven't applied them to this application.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Pinchula.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you. Just one for me. Obviously, you heard from both sides, from Barrel A and obviously the residents. I'm just seeking some insight from the city in relation to the actual Iluka Plaza shopping centre and the tenants there. Has there been any sentiment coming from that side of things? I just wanted to see if there's any feedback or insights from a tenant perspective.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I don't believe we got tenant feedback, but I think I'll take that question on notice just so we can research it and provide some information for elected members.
Thank you, Councillor Pinchula. Councillor Pizzey.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question further on the bins. Before the storage place was built, when it wasn't meant to be there, where are they meant to be putting their rubbish? Storage in bins, etc.?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I might take the question on notice and provide some specifics, but I believe there is a centralised storage area for the plaza more generally, and I think that's where the waste was required to be taken. But as I said, I'll take it on questions on notice just so I can clarify.
Okay. And just my experience with bins being close to residential areas from other plazas like this, like in Mullaloo, where bins are empty late at night and early in the morning, it does seem to be an ongoing issue that is hard for the city to stop when people are not being compliant with what they're meant to be doing. So in light of that, do you think that this will become an increasing problem by allowing this storage here, especially with the noise, that matting and the gate noise really isn't the issue, it's loud bottles being placed in the bins late at night? So how would that be mitigated?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. For the city and its recommendation, what will be key is the content of the noise management plan. What would also be required is obviously adherence to that noise management plan by the operator or owner. What the noise management plan would do, it would clearly set out the obligations to the operator, and it would also clearly set out what standards the city expects and how we can follow up and enforce if times are not being adhered to, or if different materials are being stored in there that are causing issues. For some older approvals in shopping centres, the noise management or the waste management obligations might not be as clearly defined, and sometimes that makes it more challenging for the city to take action. I would suspect in this instance the noise management plan would make it very clear what could or couldn't be done, and it would then be on the operator to adhere to that and then for the city to enforce it.
Thank you. Is that all, or
No.
further? Yes.
Could we please get more information about what would be in that plan and how the city would restrict that or limit that noise in that area? Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, happy to provide some indications of what would likely be included. If it were to be approved by council and the condition imposed, there would be a lot more detail worked through with the applicant to understand the operations, but we can certainly give council or elected members some guidance on the sorts of things that we would be expecting to include in it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Pizzey. Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. When the development was first approved, what was the intended purpose of this unit?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. I think the original approval had this one as an office/consulting room. I don't think they had a specific land use attached at that time, but office or consulting room was what was assigned to it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to get my head around some of the timelines that have been referred to. So just following on from that, when the building was constructed next door, the apartment building, was this unit still being used as an office, or was at that point it had been converted to a bar?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know specifics, but I'm pretty confident to say that the apartment building was constructed before the small bar was established. I'm not sure what the tenancy was being operated as at the time, though. It may have been vacant, but as I said, to your point and the question, I'm very confident the apartments were there prior to the small bar establishing.
Okay, thank you. Now we've established that, I just wanted to move on from that. How recently did the operator take over this unit, and what was the process to convert it to a small bar?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can double check exactly the timing that the city would have become aware that it's a small bar. The process that I would think it would have followed, or what would be typical of the process that would be followed, as was referred to in one of the deputations earlier tonight, this particular land use in this particular piece of land doesn't require planning approval. So the first interaction or regulatory interaction the operator would have had with the city would be through a fit-out licence or a building permit that would be seeking approval under the Building Act for the works that they would need to do primarily internally to convert it to whatever land use it was prior to the small bar. That would have been, no, I think I'll take the question on notice, and I can provide you the information as to when we first received the building permit.
Okay, yeah, thank you. But just to check on that, at the time when that conversion took place, the owner would have been aware that there was no alfresco approved to be used. Is that correct?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, that would have been right. There wouldn't have been an alfresco space approved as part of that tenancy.
Yeah, and then just following on from that, are there any other units at the precinct which are either suitable for alfresco spaces or are currently being used as alfresco spaces?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of a true alfresco space by the city's definition, that would be an area located in the public realm, so within road reserves or street verges. In the context of this site, that would then suggest that the only tenancies that could accommodate that would be those on the ground floor. I don't believe there are any approved alfrescos at that centre at this time, but to establish an alfresco by the city's definition, it would be the ground floor tenancies that would be suitable. Having said that, there may be pseudo alfrescos that someone might want to do on upper floors, but would be alfresco in appearance, but not necessarily by definition.
Yeah, thank you. And then just to clarify on that, there is obviously there is outdoor dining at another unit at that precinct, but that's not classified as alfresco. Would that be correct?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think the hospitality venue on the ground floor, there is outdoor dining, but it's contained within the property boundary. So that's actually a really good example of what may appear like alfresco and function as alfresco, but it, by the city's definition, wouldn't technically be alfresco.
Okay, thank you. Now, just on that, does the applicant here have any connection to that business that actually has the outdoor seating already approved?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to take the question on notice and clarify, but I don't believe so anymore.
Okay, yeah, no, okay, that's fine. Now, just two more questions. Now, this is just about, there was a lot of comments made about, I guess, ignoring current rules, or the perception that that has happened. I just want to check, in the instance where someone does not conform to the planning approvals in place, such as setting up a bin shed without approval, setting out alfresco dining without approval, installing a statue without approval, those types of things, is there actually any penalty? Or what is the actual enforcement mechanisms? I obviously get there's a retrospective application, but if the retrospective application is rejected, are they therefore deemed to have absolutely breached the previous conditions? And then what actually is the process there?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There's probably not one single way the city would deal with a compliance issue in every single instance. We do judge things on their merit. What I can say, however, though, is when it is brought to our attention or when we become aware that there has been a breach against planning requirements or building standards, our first endeavour is to gain compliance in some way, shape or form. So it may be whether it's removing a structure or amending a use, or it may be that the owner or operator seeks approval from the city to be able to carry out what they've already done. As you mentioned, in those instances and someone seeks approval, there's a retrospective application that's required, and that comes at a higher fee if through the process approval is able to be gained, and then that pretty much closes the compliance matter. If approval isn't granted, then the applicant is still in breach, and there's various ways to escalate the city's compliance response to try and have the owner or operator cease what they're doing. There's mechanisms in terms of, from a planning point of view, you can serve a notice under the Planning Act that can carry fairly significant penalties, or you could also seek to prosecute the person. Again, it carries penalties, but prosecution doesn't always result in compliance. It just potentially results in a fine, but the city would still need to try and revert the issue back to a compliant nature. So there's a number of different mechanisms the way that the city responds to compliance matters. In the first instance, though, it is certainly our preference for us to engage civilly with an operator or an applicant and revert a matter to a compliance situation, whether or not that is taking away what's there or getting approval for what's there.
And just my
sorry, Councillor Hudson, last question.
Yeah, final question.
Thank you.
Well timed. Just on that, there's been a lot of discussion about the application of conditions. I just wanted to check, does the operator have a track record of complying with conditions placed on it or regulations? Would that be a valid consideration in assessing this application? Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The planning decision making is agnostic in that sense, so it's not a consideration or a valid planning consideration for a decision maker to take into account what the track record of someone might be and what the assumption or perception of what someone might do would not be appropriate to take into account to making a planning decision. So decision makers are required to assess something on its planning merit and how it stacks up against a planning framework, rather than what they believe someone may or may not do, or what they may or may not have done in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? It appears not. I just have a couple myself. The first one for the director is relating to the parking calculations. It says in the report that there is currently a shortfall of 7 bays. If the storage element is approved, then that's -1 bay. The area in between, minus another bay as well. And then if the alfresco area was approved, 2 additional bays would be lost. So then for an entire shortfall of 11. In relation to the calculation for the alfresco area, it says that it could accommodate 30 to 40 patrons. Is there an accessible parking shortfall, parking need, if that was to be considered? So if there's 30 to 40 patrons, if they're assessed at 5 bays, is that an additional on top of that existing shortfall, which would then come to 11, is there also an additional 6 to 8 bays which would be needed to accommodate that increase in patrons?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's an interesting question because the alfresco space, as you set out, would be able to accommodate patronage. The way the parking ratio for the Iluka structure plan is defined, and it's not dissimilar to many other parking ratios across the city and throughout Greater Perth. It requires parking at a ratio of 1 bay per 20 square metres of net lettable area. Net lettable area is quite a specific definition which doesn't include alfresco spaces. So in this instance, the parking shortfall results just from the occupation of parking bays rather than the creation of additional space.
Thank you. Given that, is it reasonable to assume that this would increase in a practical sense, planning assessments aside a practical sense, an additional 6 to 8 vehicles, like looking at the city's other assessments of parking and say 5 bays per 30 to 40 patrons? In a practical sense, would an additional alfresco area attract additional traffic movements in bays?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. We've certainly based our assessment on parking standards rather than practical standards, but to your question, if you were to apply the parking standard that applies in the Iluka structure plan to the alfresco space, I believe the alfresco space is about 27 square metres, so that would get you 1 1/3 bays. So it would be more like 1 or 2 additional bays by the parking standard rather than the patronage. That's how we would calculate it if it fell in the definition of net lettable area.
Thank you. And then moving on to the officer's recommendation, of course, it suggests for the approval of the storage facility, and then, of course, a refusal for the alfresco area. And, of course, the refusal for the alfresco area is listed as an advice note. Is there merit on increasing or clarifying that this is clearly a refusal for that element rather than just having an advice note? And would that make, if that is considered a refusal of past the development application, does that make it easier then for, or not easier, because it's a partial refusal, does that give the developer the opportunity to appeal it in the SAT? And would we have a more defensible position if we fleshed out the advice note or changed it from advice note to clear wording that says refusal?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to provide some further information for elected members in the briefing pack. However, the way the recommendation has been structured at the moment, whilst there is the detail, if you like, in the advice note around the reasons why the alfresco area isn't included, the recommendation itself, as you point out, it sets out the approval for the storage area, but there is also a sentence at the end that notes that the approval doesn't relate to the proposed alfresco area, and so that statement is intended to be read in conjunction with the advice note. So the advice note sets out the reasons. The recommendation identifies that the alfresco doesn't form part of the approval, so it would give the applicant the ability to appeal that. And I suppose from my point of view, if we were to end up in an appeal situation, the reasons behind council's decision is already set out. But as I said, I'm quite happy to provide some more information for elected members in the pack. We've used the planning and development local planning schemes regulations into how we've structured the recommendation, but we can step through elected members how we arrived at the format we did.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other further questions? Appears not, so we'll move on to the next item for tonight's agenda, which is item 1219, which is the footpaths, the petition to abandon the construction of footpaths in Birch Place and Carew Place in Greenwood. So I think we first have a short presentation from Director Claassen, then we'll move to questions from elected members. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just thought I'll cover a couple of the comments that was made in the presentation. The city's capital works program, especially the paths programs, endeavour to create more walkable neighbourhoods within the city by providing serviceable pathways to cater for pedestrians and cyclists of all ages and abilities, as well as promoting and facilitating walking and cycling as a primary mode of transport. New pathways are planned and prioritised by using a multi-criteria analysis, which factors in proximity to schools, community facilities, activity centres, transport nodes, and retirement aged care facilities. Also considered are site issues and likely vegetation impacts, existing alternative routes, and direct impact. It's not because we have money available or we have engineers with nothing to do. The pathways in Birch Place and Carew Place are two such paths, forming key linkages to the Greenwood Primary School. When planning public infrastructure within the Verge, the city must prioritise the safety, accessibility and needs of the wider community rather than individual property preferences. A 1.8 metre footpath is consistent with the intent of the Disability Discrimination Act, the Australian Standards Designed for Access and Mobility, and Austroad's Guide to Road Design Part 6A, ensuring safe, accessible and inclusive infrastructure that accommodates all users, especially the most vulnerable. These two pathways will improve safety, especially for pedestrians, including primary school children accessing the nearby Greenwood Primary School. While it is acknowledged that a footpath may alter the visual appearance of the Verge, there are compelling safety, accessibility and legislative reasons why 1.8 metre width is the appropriate and compliant outcome. Happy to take questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Director. We'll start with Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple of questions for the Director. Do you agree, once again I'm looking at page 774 from the attachments, and I'm looking at the pathway that's planned leading from the PAW adjacent or attached to Allenswood Road, and then the pathway along Carew Place leading to a new pedestrian crossing. I suppose the first question is that pedestrian crossing adjacent to the school existing at the moment, or is it just proposed?
Yep. Director.
Through Mr. Mayor, that pedestrian crossing is not existing. It's a new proposed pedestrian crossing linking that new footpath to the footpath on the other side of Maryvale Drive.
Then my next question is, I suppose, do you agree that having that prescribed pathway there, any pedestrian movement, whether they're residents or students going to Greenwood School, that pathway would necessarily lead to the crossing rather than students just rambling across Maryville Way. That pathway, in fact, would lead to safer outcomes. And I'm only mentioning it because in the outline of the deputation given by Mr. Diamond, Hurst and Madden, are suggesting that this would not lead to a safer outcome. And I disagree with their commentary, and I'm just wondering what the city's position and yours might be in terms of providing safer movement for pedestrians in that area. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely, Councillor Chester, the pathway will improve safety. If you compare school children walking on a pathway to a designated pedestrian crossing on Maryville Place, that's a huge improvement for kids that walk on the roadway if they don't walk on the Verge and find their own way across Maryville Place. One of the key aspects that's been raised through the development of the integrated transport strategy and specifically the community consultation is the lack of connections that stops parents from letting their kids walk to school. Part of the integrated transport plan then looks at an objective to improve connectivity. And these pathways that come through to the city, either whatever identification, either internally or externally or via elected members coming from the community members, are then assessed against those criteria to improve safety. And this is absolutely one of those that improve safety.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And I totally agree that the pathways we plan in the city are there to provide connectivity to schools, bus stops, shopping centres, and they are a long way from being frivolously planned or capricious. Sorry about the pronunciation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. I think, as most elected members are aware, we try and ask questions, not statements at briefing sessions, but thank you, Councillor Chester.
I guess the question should have been, Director, do you agree with me that this planned footpath is neither frivolous or capricious in its planning?
Councillor Chester, a brief response, Director. It's probably not needed, Councillor Chester. Well, let's try to stay focused on the item at hand. I think next we had Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things, if I could. Question, just one for the city there in relation to the $40,000 budget that has been scheduled for this. Does that include any additional works, like, say, for instance, as pointed out, possible removal of trees, levelling of the land in Carew Place? That'd be my first question, please.
The cost estimate includes all the works. I will put in the briefing pack the cost that we got from the tenders or the quotations we received to actually compare that with the budget for you.
So has it been budgeted to remove that large tree on Carew Place?
Through Mr. Mayor, I can't say it's budgeted to remove the tree. The city assessed the impact on vegetation and then look at what's the best route to balance safety and impacts on vegetation. Again, I will provide that in a pack, what will happen in that specific location.
Okay, great. I'd appreciate a very clear indication of whether it has been approved for removing that large tree or not. Secondly, as mentioned by my co-ward councillor, Councillor Chester, and yourself just momentarily, Director Glasson, that you both mentioned safety. The pathway that runs down Carew is proposed to run down along Carew and then onto a new pedestrian crossing across Merivale Road. That's correct?
Director?
The pedestrian crossing is across Merivale Road, that's correct.
Yes, and are you aware that if this pathway was to be installed where it has been proposed to, when you reach across to the other side of Merivale Way, maybe say 2 or 3 metres from where you cross that road, are you aware of what's on the other side of that, 2 or 3 metres away?
Director? Might help Councillor O'Neill if you
the car park that you will be funneling residents and people into the car park. There's a large brush area. I've been there myself, so there is a large brush area there where, you know, kids like to sort of play through the brush area, but a couple of metres from there, there's a car park, and it's an angled car park where the cars are forced to drive in forward. So essentially, when children are crossing, they will be crossing directly towards cars that would be reversing towards them. Is that correct?
Director?
Through Mr. Mayor, no, that is not correct. The pedestrian crossing take the children to the footpath on the opposite side of Merivale Road. Yes, there is an angled car park on the other side of the road, but that's not the main access point to the school. So the pedestrian crossing will link them back to down Merivale Road to access then the school. It is no different to kids walking, jaywalking across Merivale without a pedestrian crossing and decide to cross into the car park or use the footpath on the other side of Merivale Road to get into the school. So no, I don't think that funnels them right into the car park. It actually improves the safety.
Right, okay. So moving along from that one aside, I'd like to know if the city has had any complaints in the history of the city of Joondalup that there's no footpath provided in Carew Place or Birch Place yet.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was specifically raised by elected members through a budget process where there were specific concerns raised to those elected members and a request for a footpath. We did not base the assessment on the request of the footpath. We then assessed that based on the multi-criteria analysis, taking into account the various aspects that I've covered in my briefing earlier tonight.
Okay, and just lastly, how many incidents have there been in Carew Place or Birch Place involving, pedestrians being hit or cars knocking over kids or anything like that?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, none that the city is aware of, but I don't think we should not anticipate how to improve safety in a specific situation like this where it provides key linkages to the primary school.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor May first, Councillor Vitchula, then Councillor Pizzi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, it was stated during one of the deputations around the path being 2 metres wide. My understanding is the current standard is 1.8 metres. Just wanting some clarity around that.
The proposal is 1.8 metres. Through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Thank you. Does the 1.8 metres include the actual curb as well, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the 1.8 metre does not include the curb, no.
No worries. And just a further question in terms of the pedestrian crossing on Maryville. Just wondering if the city's been in contact with or heard from the school, whether it be the PNC or their school staff, around what their preference would be.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we have not had specific discussions with the school. However, we do provide assistance to school to apply for a school crossing with a warden crossing if that warrants the need for that, and that's something that can happen afterwards. Any application for a warden crossing, the infrastructure needs to be in place prior to I can't remember what that unit is called, before they actually consider an application.
Councillor?
Thank you. And forgive me, I understand if Director may not know this off the top of his head. The public access way off Allenswood Place, the current footpath there is the width of about 1.8 metres.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure, but I can quickly check. Yeah, it's most probably 1.8 to 2 metres, just quickly measuring on GIS here.
Councillor May?
No problem. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Councillor Vinchula.
Thank you. Through you, I believe Councillor May probably addressed my question, but just in case, I'll just further clarify. In relation to the school, has the Greenwood Senior High School provided feedback of support or any kind of insight moving forward?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not that I'm aware of, but I can check with the team.
Thank you, Manol. Thank you, Councillor Vinchula. Councillor Pizzi.
With the PAW connects to the park, a footpath that connected to the PAW to the other PAW that connects to Allenswood, would that be a good way of funneling traffic through the park rather than down the street, or was that considered by the city?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was considered by the city. I should also mention that as part of the Parks Amenity Improvement Program, Birch Park is due for an upgrade 2 years out, a year out. I'm not exactly sure. Part of that, there's looking at connectivity to that play space. However, from an accessibility point of view, pedestrians would also always prefer the shortest route, and in that instance, they would prefer the route down Birch Place. As indicated, there is a number of pedestrians already using that, and there's already a formed footpath on the cul-de-sac between Birch Park and Maryvale Place.
Councillor Pizzey?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzey. Any further questions? Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Just through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director, could I just get some clarification on the history of the past few years and whether the city has any circumstances where residents who've been advised that a footpath is going to be constructed on their residential verge, have any residents actually welcomed it and appreciated it, or because it seems like quite a lot of residents are pushing back on it? Thank you.
I can think of one or two incidences, but we'll go to the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We usually hear from the people that don't want it, Councillor Hill. There's anecdotal evidence that there's a lot of residents that appreciate that. There's also a lot of residents that don't live in the street that actually utilise that footpath, that is must be more appreciative of the footpath than those living in the street itself.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Any further questions? I've got one or two myself, and then I have to do a brief one, Councillor O'Neill. Director, my question goes to just one of your responses. I forget who it was to. It was said that there was a discussion during the ward councillor meetings about the capital works, that there was a specific request from a person. Do you think you'd be able to provide in the pack just what the nature of that request was and who it was from for this path?
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, what was conveyed to the city officers that there was specific requests to the elected member in question, not the city directly, so I'm unfortunately not able to provide you with that.
Okay, sure. So the genesis of this idea, did it come from the capital works session and that elected member feeding in that request from the member of the community, if I've got that correct?
Mr. Mayor, the original identification of the project was through that avenue. Yes, that is correct. But as I've indicated, that was not the reason why it was listed in the capital works program. We do an assessment, do a multi-career analysis, as I said, taking into consideration a number of factors, including connectivity to schools, etc., and that then prioritizes the path. The path was identified 5 years ago, and then based on priority was only be able to be funded in 5 years from the time when it was identified. So it was not just because it was raised as a request, it was assessed and deemed appropriate and prioritized accordingly.
Thank you, Director. And there was a comment as well about a multi-criteria analysis which was done on this project. Are we able to receive a copy of that, or was that more of an informal?
No, it's not an informal. We actually have a prioritization matrix, which we use to inform the capital works program. I'm happy to provide you with that.
Thank you, Director. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a really short one. If council was to accept the petition and reject the pathways being installed, would that $40,000 that has been slated to cover this, would that cover a pathway through from Allenswood through the park to Maryvale, or near about cover it?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It will most probably cover it if you look at a cost estimate, but as I've indicated, the improvements to Birch Park is already listed in the capital works program. My view would be that if council is of an opinion not to support the construction of the footpath here to improve safety, then that should just go back into the overall budget availability.
Thank you, Director.
So we would save money.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. I think it's best, very briefly, Councillor Pizzey.
Yeah, sorry, just touching on what you mentioned just now, the safety issue. If council decided that this wasn't a good path to put in, and the city has said that this is a safety issue, if a pedestrian was hit on that street, would the council be up for litigation on that?
Director? I think it's quite a hypothetical, but...
Through you, Mr. Mayor, very difficult to provide a response to that. I think it's more the moral obligations that we need to look at.
Thank you, Director. I think it's best that we move on, given the time. So we'll move to, there is a presentation by Director Humphrey next on item, actually no, we'll do that when we get to it, at the latter part of the agenda. So we'll move through the reports for this month's agenda in a sequential order. So I'll ask to see if there's any questions first, starting at the top. So for item 12.1, the development and subdivision applications, are there any questions on this? No? We've already done 12.2. Moving to 12.3, process designation of a portion of pedestrian access way at Staten Crescent Greenwood. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed that an application has been received, is mentioned in the report, but I couldn't find who the applicant was. Could I please be informed who actually made the application? I suspect it was probably the property owner adjacent to the PAW, but for clarity, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. Director Lee, we might need to be mindful of privacy considerations if it's not able to be disclosed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I will confirm for elected members in the briefing pack.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions on this item? No. Moving then to item 12.4, execution of documents. No questions. Item 12.5 is confidential, which we'll leave to the end of the agenda if there's questions. Item 12.6, status of council decisions. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just seeking a few updates. First one is in council resolution, which was an alternate recommendation with the AGM, CJ 117-05/24, in relation to the weed mitigation. I'm just wondering if I can get a brief update as to where the city is standing with that, noting that it is listed for a strategy session in December. Is there anything further we can be made aware of?
Director Claassen? Yes.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is still scheduled for the December strategy session.
Thank you. And further, Council Resolution CJ 318-1124 in relation to the virtual fencing, just ensuring that that will be prepared for the December 2025 council meeting. Is that correct?
Director? Or Director of Governance?
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it is intended to present that report to the December council meeting.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Further, only two more there. Just a request that I put through the Audit and Risk Committee meeting that there was a report to be created on the costs of the robot, including security and transportation. Just following up if there's anything further for that.
I think Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take the question on notice and provide the information in the elected members' briefing pack, but there has been work commenced on that request for you, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. And further to that, on 19th of May 2025, during the same Audit and Risk meeting, made a request for the report on the travel arrangement processes and systems for allowing the streamlining of savings. It was told that it would be presented at November 2025 Audit and Risk meeting. However, I didn't see it in the agenda.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, the report wasn't able to be completed due to a staff absence. We'll make sure it's at the next Audit and Risk Committee meeting.
So that's to confirm it will be in the next Audit and Risk meeting. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Any further questions on the status of council decisions? It appears not. Next item, minutes of regional council meetings. Any questions? Okay, item 12.8, setting of council meeting dates for 2026. No, item, sorry, Councillor Hudson.
One question.
Yes.
I just wanted to check, obviously, the current proposal is to continue with the briefing session council meeting composition. I wanted to know if there was going to be any discussion at a council level around how we approach these going forward, and whether or not there will be any consideration around restructuring this, or if at the next council meeting would be the appropriate time to raise those discussions.
Does the Director, the CEO, have any thoughts about that? I think given that we do need to set meetings for the new year, it's probably prudent we go ahead with the current dates and then probably have a discussion maybe at a strategy session. I think that might be the best way to approach it, about what is the best way to look at the dates either through the latter end of 2026 or probably more appropriately 2027. Yep.
That's fine, and just confirming then, if we obviously make this decision, that's a decision that can be undone by council at a date when we decide, if we do so, to change the layout.
I mean, it's open to council to change council meeting dates, but there is a public notice. So the public also has an expectation of knowing the dates in advance. So that's the only other consideration which would have to be given to that. Yep. Any further questions? No. 12.9, corporate business plan, Q1 report. No. 12.10, strategic workforce plan. 12.11, corporate sponsorship program. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thanks. Through you, Mr. Mayor. On page 76, there is a discussion on sponsorship to West Perth Football Club, referring to naming rights in the form of City of Joondalup Falcons. Please can I get some clarification as to the extent to which this naming convention would be applied by West Perth Football Club? Thank you.
Director of Governance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the question. I'm very lucky that I've got the Manager Communications and Stakeholder Relations here. Are you happy to answer this question? Yes.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The extent to which this naming rights will apply is to the team, so this would apply to the women's WAFL team.
Thank you for the clarification. Further through you, Mr. Mayor, on page 71, it lists a recommended sponsorship of $40,000 to Sea of Blue Pty Limited relating to the Western Force match at Arena Joondalup on 21st February 2026. Please can I get clarification on the relationship between Sea of Blue and Western Force? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll have to take that question on notice and provide some information in the pack.
Thank you. If I may continue through you, Mr. Mayor. I note that the community engagement appears to comprise of 2 weeks of clinics and club visits. Page 93 refers to partnerships with Joondalup Brothers Rugby Union Football Club. Please can I seek clarification as to the potential extent of such a partnership on match day, such as within the fan zone activations? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll have to take that one on notice again, Councillor, and we'll provide the information to you in the pack.
Thank you. I have one final question, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm noting that last question and that the information will be in the pack, and also noting there is limited time between when this sponsorship may be approved and the actual event, given the Christmas holidays and New Year, etc. I'm mindful of that. I wonder whether the city can provide contact details of the contact person managing match day activations in the pack, so that I can advise Joondalup Brothers, if this sponsorship is approved, who they can contact to discuss this partnership. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can provide those details. We have already provided them to Joondalup Brothers so that they can also do their own advocacy to make sure that they get the best deal that they can out of this proposed partnership. We're very happy to share them again. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, through you, Mr. Mayor, so given that's the case, please can I just have those details also stated in the pack? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor O'Neill, then Councillor Fishwick, Councillor Hutton, then. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question for the city in relation to the Joondalup Wolves there on page 85 down the bottom there. It says the Joondalup Wolves NBL1 team seeking co-naming major rights. It's just only mentioned once in here, but it actually says example, i.e. City of Joondalup Chambers Franklin Joondalup Wolves. Is that the proposed name?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is the name that they've had for many years now and is continuing to be the proposed name.
Okay, and I'll just move on from that one there. I was just reading through some of the paperwork, looking at the documentation. It was stated by the city that if all the endorsements for this round are actually accepted, we do actually exceed the sponsorship amounts. So I'm just wondering if it's possible for the city to include in the pack any sort of recommendations of something that could be altered to move and come back within the agreed previous council amounts, the budgets.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the amount that is over budget is about $55, which is suggested can be accommodated within the budget. with regard to these, with regard to the budget and the sponsorship amounts, it is at the council's discretion to amend or reduce any of these budgets, but they have been based upon quite a scientific assessment against the criteria which the council has adopted previously.
In which case, I'd just like to request that on the evening we vote on these separately.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. I'll make a note for that. Councillor Fishwick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to the sponsorship amount of $15,000 for the West Perth Football Club, has any discussions been held with the club to give further consideration to changing its name to the Joondalup Football Club, given that this council requested the club give consideration to changing its name when a previous sponsorship amount, I think, was about $30,000 for the major club. However, the president at that time refused to give that consideration and rejected the $30,000 sponsorship. So for me, I think it's time again that we breached this with the club about requesting their name change for our sponsorship. Can that be held, please?
Thank you. If the manager can take the question, but it might also worth be touching on that some of these clubs have a very long history attached to their club names, so that might help the answer.
Also, Mr Mayor, it might be useful if we just place within the briefing pack the history of the past sponsorship and the council, most recent council decision, because I believe that there might have been a council decision to promote or advocate for that change of name as well. So putting that information back in the pack might prompt an alternate motion, or just provide the history to elected members.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. It's just probably worth touching on this is going to be for the women's WAFL team as well, not the main male team. Thank you. We had Councillor Hutton next.
I think it was actually Councillor Ventura that was next.
Was it? I had Councillor Hutton.
Oh, sorry, that's all good. In terms of the, sorry, through you, Mayor, in terms of the events, some of the events we have listed, are any of them actually conditional upon receiving the funding? Obviously, noting the fact that the Western Force game has already been promoted.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that does depend on the different event. It would be within the rights of the event organiser to change the conditions, and therefore they wouldn't receive sponsorship. However, as far as we know, none of these are conditional at this stage.
Thank you. Now, just in terms of the criteria for assessing the applications, I know there's already a question been taken on notice around previous decisions. I just wanted to seek some clarity around the matrix that's used to identify the figures. Now, the reason I ask that is from the context of the waffle naming rights, $30,000 was referred to, whereas the waffle W naming rights, 15,000 was referred to, whereas the magnitude of attendance at these events is a multiple of that. I'm just wondering how we actually get consistency in terms of a dollar cost per eye on the City of Joondalup's brand.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. So in terms of how we evaluate the audience size, we look at a number of, we look at a number of factors, which includes whether it attracts and engages the local community, and where they come from, so local, wider metro, or other. And then we also look at the audience size, and if you look at the guidelines that the council has previously signed off and that have been provided, we do make some recommendations, if you like, around what people need to aim for if they want a certain dollar amount. And so the criteria is applied is scientific, but it is that essentially we give them a score based on looking at how much money they've requested, and then based on the audience size and what category they fit in and where that audience is coming from, and then we weight that and apply it to the score. I'm very happy to answer any questions either after this session or elsewhere. If you've got more specific questions, I'm happy to talk you through that. Thank you.
Yeah, all good. I'm happy to take those offline. Just in terms of the motion itself, in light of previous discussions I've had around the viability of this programme, I would like to request an alternative be prepared, which has an additional point, which effectively requests that the programme be reviewed ahead of the next annual budget. if that could be prepared, I would appreciate that.
Yep. Are you willing, Director, are you willing to work with Councillor Hutton to get some appropriate wording?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yep, happy to work with Councillor Hutton. I understand the intent that the sponsorship program be submitted back to the council or to the policy committee for another review.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we had Councillor Vinciulo, then Councillor Chester. Councillor Vinciulo.
Thank you. Through you, I've had my questions addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vinciulo. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you. In round one, and I'm referring here to recommendation 8 of this report, we're all aware that requests for sponsorship under $10,000 are handled by the CEO under delegation. So my question is, how many requests for sponsorship were made under round one? In that category, were they all approved? Were none approved? Were some approved? Could I have some details in the next, in the pack or possibly this evening? Thank you.
Director Parry.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Chester, those details are provided on page 72 of the pack, where we've listed the different applicants, what the event is, the dates, and the amount requested versus the recommendation that we made.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. Any further comments or, sorry, not comments, questions? Councillor Pizzey.
Just a quick question, and I don't need it now, but if it could be provided in the pack, questions around Hillary's Boat Harbour and their event. What does the city get from rent from Hillary's Boat Harbour is one question.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the Hillary's Boat Harbour is managed by the Department of Transport, so we don't receive any rent. By way of rates, I take the question notice to provide the exact number, but it's circa $2 million per annum in rates from the Hillary's Boat Harbour.
Sorry, thank you for that. I did mean rates. And with this activity, is there any onus on Hillary's Boardwalk to advertise? I note it was on this weekend. This event was held this weekend. I had no idea it was on, except that a school mum told me. So I'm just wondering, is there any onus on Hillary's Boat Harbour to advertise it and advertise the city's involvement?
Yes, we'll go to Director Parry, his team again.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr Mayor. Yes, so the amount that we actually recommend is based on the brand and recognition. One of the main criteria is the brand and recognition benefits that they actually offer the city. And so we would evaluate this application based on that. So just by way of example, depending on the amount that they were requesting, if it was a local event, we'd expect them to promote the city through over 9 channels to get the full score. 6 channels, if it's sort of between 9 and 6, then yeah, they'd get 2/3 of that, and if it's less than 3, they'd get 1/3 of that. So we certainly take that recognition into account. And one of the reasons that we do that is to incentivise some of these events to continue to work with the city to raise and promote these events to the community, and it's one lever that we can pull. I think the other important thing to say about this in terms of the traders and the promoters is that for this event, and noting that it's in 2026 rather than the one for this year, so we're looking next year, we do know that 80% of the traders offer promotions and or tie-ins, so it's not just the boardwalk, it would also be the traders and the other promoters that we'd be hoping would get involved and promote that, not just through their shopfront stores, but also through social media. If this was something that the council wanted to see more of, we could certainly take that as well as a particular request and make sure that we work with the provider on how that happens next year.
Councillor Pizzey.
Yeah, obviously that's a benefit to the city and the residents because they actually know that it's happening, they can go attend. Just a follow-up on that is how can we make sure, and obviously it's in their best interest to promote it, I understand that, but how can we make sure that they are actually doing that adequately through their marketing departments? I understand that they're meant to, but how do we confirm that?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So there's 2 ways. Firstly, it's a 50-50 payment that we provide. So we provide 50% to an event up front based on their application that they give to allow them to get the event started. And then the second part of the payment is actually given to them on completion and when they give us their report saying that they've done the things that they promised to do. The second thing that we do is if this is a repeat event and if it comes to the city next year, if they haven't actually fulfilled the terms and conditions in the previous year or lived up to what they've said they do, they might see themselves with a deduction off their score straight away, which would see them certainly considered for a lesser amount if they don't have a reliable track record delivering what they've said they deliver.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzey. Councillor Vinciulo, do you have a further brief question?
Thank you. Through you, just one. In relation to Hillary's boardwalk, do we have any idea if they have, I would imagine with such a large facility, an email distribution list, and do we have numbers?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll have to take that question on notice and provide the information in the pack. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vinciulo. It's best we move on. So the next item is list of payments. Councillor Owen. Oh, sorry, community funding program for round one, item 12.12. Any questions for community funding? Yes, Councillor O'Neill.
Just as in the previous item, I'd like to ask that these on the evening are voted on separately.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. On page 112, the small grants valued at 10k or less have been approved by the CEO, with elected members being advised of the outcomes. Now, I may have missed this somewhere, but please can I ask the CEO to confirm whether details of these applications have been provided to elected members, or alternatively, include the details in the pack. Thank you.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, ordinarily the small grants would be advised to Council through the desk of the CEO. It was scheduled for this Friday on the 14th, so we'll ensure it goes out the desk of the CEO and the packs as well.
Thank you. I did have a look at recent editions and didn't see it. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Hutton, briefly, if you could.
Yeah, thank you. So, noting we're on the community funding programme, just having looked at the corporate sponsorship programme as well, there is a clause in there which actually specifies that you're not allowed to lobby councillors to seek a favourable decision. I'm wondering if those provisions or any provisions of such apply to the community funding programme and whether or not lobbying of the local councillors is permitted under the programme's policies.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the eligibility criteria is that elected members not be lobbied as a part of the application, but I will take the question on notice and provide the terms and conditions of application so that elected members can see that.
Yeah, and if I just follow on that through you, Mayor, I'd also like to know in the instance where local councillors have been lobbied, what the process would be and who's the correct person to inform about that.
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if someone was aware that a group had lobbied, then that would be a matter to report to the CEO.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And just following from that, similar to the previous agenda item, I'd also like to ask an alternate be prepared, which would seek a review of this programme ahead of next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutton. Director Humphrey, your start.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, happy to provide that alternate.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have one for the Director, just following on from Councillor Hutton's line of questioning. In the pack, could you also include what is appropriate lobbying? So if members of the public come to a council meeting to make a presentation, what actions are appropriate lobbying and which ones aren't, if that could be delineated?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just happy to provide that information. Just off the top of my head, though, once a matter is part of the public council meeting, deputations, public statements are not considered lobbying. Mm-hmm. Lobbying usually refers to direct contact with elected members to try and seek a favourable outcome.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzey.
Yeah, I just had one question, if that's okay, through you, Mayor. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, we have just the motions in the OSHA application. Could we get further information about how they scored poorly against certain line items where the numbers didn't quite match up?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be more comfortable providing that information in the packs, writing directly to elected members rather than discussing it this evening.
Yes, thank you. And just they've received funding for 4 years in a row. It's a good program, but does this kind of funding application, do we limit how many times in a row people can apply for it, or can they apply for it every year?
Through Mr Mayor, there's no limitation on the number of times a community group can apply. The City does provide assistance to community groups to help them complete their applications and information sessions on what's required to be included in an application as well.
Thank you, Councillor Pizzey. Any further questions before we move on? No? The next item is item 1213, list of payments. Councillor O'Neill, I know you had a couple in advance. I just know it is getting late, so if you
yes,
could.
Mr Mayor, I will keep this brief. There's only really a couple that I wanted to talk to. The first one is on page 552, sorry. T. Tucker and T.S. Tucker Noongar training classes, $990. There's two item charges, both for $495. One of them is a 2 times 1 hour staff Noongar language, and the other one is a group Noongar language class. My questions to the City is, who was this training provided to, for what reason, and what value does this provide to the City?
Director Lee.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. The payment relates to 2 Noongar classes, as you mentioned, provided by Yolkarang Consulting. It was provided to City staff in September. The activity responds directly to one of the deliverables endorsed by Council in our Reconciliation Action Plan, and it's to provide opportunities for our RAP community reference group members, elected members and our staff to participate in formal and structured cultural learning. It also allows us to be better equipped to respond to one of the community outcomes of our strategic community plan, which is being to understand, value and celebrate the City's unique Aboriginal and other diverse cultures and histories.
So how many people attended the 1 hour staff class?
Director?
The 2 staff classes.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. I'd have to take that one on notice and I can just clarify that for you.
Thank you. Moving along, if I could, just to page 552 again, the big W, $470 items for prizes for Father's Day. What was the deal with the Father's Day prizes? Gift items and prizes for Father's Day. What was that?
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that was a promotion at Craigie Leisure Centre to encourage fathers to bring their children along and participate in various classes within the centre. I'm happy to take the question on notice, provide the details of attendance and where the vouchers were distributed to in the packs.
Thank you. Next one, only 2 more to go. Page 553, $1,097. Prizes for the annual survey gift cards and decorations.
Through you, Mr Mayor, again, that was Craigie Leisure Centre. We undertake a regular survey of members and people who participate in classes at Leisure Centre. The gift vouchers were to encourage members to fill out the survey so that we get the information to improve the service at the centre.
Okay, and the last one there is on page 558, Councillor Knights-Jones, conference acquittal and expense reimbursement. What was the conference acquittal, please?
Director Parry.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the amount that is shown there, there is a portion of it that relates to monthly expenses related to mileage and parking and taxis. The conference which was attended was Developing Northern Australia Conference, so that reimbursement is for expenses incurred during that conference in alignment with the entitlements policy.
And that amount was $630.97, correct?
Director?
That is correct.
Thank you. I'll just wait for the answers on the rest of those and look forward to reading them.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I am aware of the time, but I do need clarity on 3 items. Page 550, APP Corporation, $50,000 for local planning strategy review. If I could just have some elaboration on that. Which review was it?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. APP Group were appointed by Council in November last year to provide the consulting services to the City for our local planning strategy review. This particular invoice relates to a progress payment for the housing options development phase, so phase 3 of the project. We'll be presenting to elected members quite soon on the outcomes of that work and then just setting out the next steps for the project.
And that's considered a reasonable fee for that sort of consultancy, is it?
Director Lee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. The invoice is in accordance with the proposal that APP Group put to the City and was accepted by Council.
Thank you. Page 556. Sifting of playground equipment, nearly $21,000. Look, I know we have to do this to eliminate needles and glass, but the question I'd like to ask is how many playgrounds did this $20,765 cover?
Director Claassen.
Through Mr Mayor, take it on notice and provide in the packet.
Thank you. And page 559, Department of Transport, the closure of information fee, $1,336. Just curious to know what that was about. Thank you.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, normally that is the Department of Transport providing us with drivers' details or registered owners of vehicles' details, but I'll take the question on notice and confirm that facts.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. Any further questions on the list of payments? It appears the next item is financial activity statements for September 2025. No. 12:15, tender of cleaning of stormwater drainage and pipes. Questions are only on the non-confidential components of the report. No. Item 12:16, invitation to supply and deliver of precast stormwater drainage products. Any questions on the non-confidential elements? Appears not. So now we're to 12:17, the Strategic Financial Plan 2025 and budget parameters. If we could go to the presentation by Director Humphrey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor Kingston. Council is being asked to consider the Strategic Financial Plan for the next 10 years, a plan that will shape Joondalup's financial future. The plan has been prepared on the basis of keeping the city ready for the opportunities ahead, as well as maintaining our ability to respond to any challenges that may arise. Since 2020, our community has faced some challenging times. During this time, the city has been able to maintain a strong financial position, balanced against the city's needs, the community's needs, although the operating results have certainly been impacted by a reduction in projected revenues. At the same time, costs have increased for reasons beyond the city's control. The Strategic Financial Plan is a plan designed to keep the city's strong balance sheet and get the city ready for any opportunities that come our way. However, without action, we do risk being unable to fund essential infrastructure works, renew our assets, and maintain the services our community relies on, as well as limiting the city's ability to respond to any economic shocks that may occur in the future. The Strategic Financial Plan recommended within this report includes parameters to guide the administration in preparing future budgets. The main two parameters the Council needs to be aware of is that employee costs and materials and contracts are to be maintained at the current actual levels for 3 years, and the plan includes modest rate increases of up to 2% above per CPI for the next 3 years. Holding our spending at current levels in actual terms will result in a decrease of purchasing power in real terms of between 2 and 3% per annum. While every effort will be made to use technology and process improvement to offset this reduction, it is inevitable that services will either be reduced or new ways of providing services will need to be implemented. It is anticipated that employee costs will be contained using normal turnover experienced by the city. That is, there is no planned redundancies at this time. In order to keep a diverse and experienced workforce, we will need to continue providing competitive remuneration and conditions. Not providing this will reduce our ability to improve efficiencies and will likely cost the city in the longer term. However, all positions will now be revised by the executive leadership team as a part of the recruitment process to ensure efficiency improvement is able to be leveraged at every opportunity. This process has already begun to allow us to meet the recommended target in the first year of the plan. We will also continue to invest in technology to make processes more efficient and user-friendly. However, the plan does outline that increases in rates, as well as the fees and charges that the Council can control, will need to increase in line with the increase that Council adopted in June this year. That is close to 2% higher than the CPI per year for rates and 2.5% for fees and charges. It must be stressed that the Strategic Financial Plan only provides a guide to the administration to prepare budgets and a projection for the Council on the impact of budget decisions. It does not bind the Council to a particular spending level, nor does it set the level of rates or fees. That can only be done as a part of adopting the budget in June each year. The report and attachments contain a detailed explanation on how these recommendations have been formed, and with that, Mayor Kingston, I would be happy to take any questions that elected members may have.
Thank you. We had a strategy session on this, so any additional questions? Councillor Hill.
Yes, thanks through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Humphrey, for your presentation. I appreciate your comments touched on this, but I'd just like to get some clarity on headline methods that can be used on how to adopt a freeze on baseline operating expenses. How can that be achieved? Thank you.
Director Humphrey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as I alluded to, there will be an impact on services provided. It is likely that some of the works that the city has been undertaking will either be taken over a longer period of time, or services that are no longer meeting the needs of the city may be reduced or removed. But all of that will be done in consultation with the council. We'll keep you informed as those measures come through.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Any further questions? It appears not. We'll move on to item 1218, adjustment of budget, including the capital works scheduled and programme budgets. Any questions? No. We then move to 1220, state and federal government election commitments 2025. No.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Hill. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thanks through you, Mr. Mayor. So I note on page 175, there's mention of upgrades to Warwick Stadium, and noting that the state government funding is potentially $16 million. And I appreciate that the project details are not particularly known at this time, but can the city advise some indicative figure of how much the city funding may be required to deliver this project? Thank you.
Director Claassen.
Through you, Mayor Kingston, in terms of the project, we're not currently recommending council to accept the grant funding because we're still finalising that. However, indications are that early estimates of the project's around $26 million, assessment from the city around $32 million, the overall project value. So there's quite a large difference between the grant funding and the proposed overall project likely cost.
And just as a follow-up, given that you do have an approximate figure, which is helpful, thank you, I just wonder if we can get some indication of potential schedule for delivery of this project. Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently we're not even looking at the schedule. We're looking at to get an understanding of the requirements and the deliverables of the project. And once we have that, we will look at how it can be scheduled, and obviously if from an affordability point of view, if council can afford the difference in cost.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Hutton.
Yes, thank you. Just making reference to a couple of the election commitments, one being the Iluka District open space power upgrades and flood lighting, and then the other one being Timberland Park playing fields and clubroom upgrades. I noticed with the Iluka one, effectively, our city comment is that the proposed use of the funding is not necessarily supported given recent upgrades. And then on the Timberland Park one, we're looking into whether or not it's even feasible. That comes to my question, which is, what is the process, the results in election commitments being made for things that are potentially not actually required? And is there a way that we can prevent that from happening in the future? And if not, are we confident that we can get that money to be used in a way that is required to not forego the funding in our local community?
Who wishes to take that one? Director Claassen. I think it's also worth touching on how we do have an advocacy program to try and focus on what we actually are focusing on as a council.
Yep. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps that's a good starting point. The city's got an advocacy plan framework that actually identifies specific projects that we advocate in terms of seeking grant funding. That said, not all the projects that becomes election commitments aligns with the advocacy framework. And that's where those projects are being brought back to council. You might recall that we had some large commitments in the previous election. The coastal path being a renewal of an existing path was most probably an easy decision for council because we're already doing those. Some of these other projects, we're not always aware of where it comes from, who pushes for that, but one can assume that the community groups and members of the community would target the elections to get some funding for specific projects that would benefit and support their activities, either being a sporting group or any other group. In terms of that, in terms of the city's process, we usually get notified by a department. We then sit down with the department to try and understand the objective of the project and see how that aligns with the city's overall objectives. In some instances, it's easy. It's a provision or funding of something that we have already identified, or it's something that the city's got a program in place and assist in the funding of those. When it's renewal of existing projects, makes it easy. So we will go through that with the departments to try and assess the scope. What do they try to achieve with that, and any shortfall in that, and bring that to council for consideration.
Councillor Hutton, any further? Thank you. Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. That very large amount of funding, that $16 million, is partly related to relocating the Wildcats and Lynx to the upgraded stadium, and I'm just wondering whether we have heard any more about that particular project of rehoming those two teams.
Director Claassen.
Through you, Mr Mayor. At this stage, nothing more than what we've indicated previously. We had meetings with the current lessee at Warwick Stadium. We had meetings with the Wildcats, but we are looking at, I think the key issue is to determining the scope and the allocation of funding through the department to get an understanding of that, and we're working through that first.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just with other items tonight, due to item 4 and 5 that we will be voting on, increasing capital works program expenditures and non-operating grant subsidies and contributions, I'd like the items voted on separately so that we can understand that a little bit better when the voting comes.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Director Claassen, do you have a comment on? I think that's what you're signalling.
Oh, I thought there was a question on that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You take it as a question, Councillor.
I think perhaps just a comment is that the $306,000, 4 and 5 is actually linked. The $306,000 is the increase in expenditure, and the 0.5 is the increase in revenue to fund that increase in expenditure. So if we change any of the expenditure items and not support any of the projects, those two amounts will need to be amended both.
Yes, still we can vote on them separately, can we?
Director Claassen, is that feasible, given that all the elements are linked? Might be easier.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think what we can vote on separately is 2.1 to 2.10 if we want to accept the projects, but 4 and 5 is linked. If you actually increase the budget, you actually have to increase the grant funding, because there's also an item 3 that say council does not support any additional own source funding outside from what's already listed in the 5-year capital works program. So any changes, and if there are any of these projects not supported by elected members, I would request, Mr Mayor, that perhaps the elected member makes contact with us and we can work with them to see what they don't want to support, so that we can amend 2, 4 and 5 to reflect that specific request.
Thank you, Director. Councillor O'Neill, is that acceptable?
Yes, perhaps, yeah, voting on items 2.1 to 2.10 separately would remedy a lot of those issues. Thank you.
I see. Thank you. Any final questions on this item? No, we'll move on. The last item on this, excluding the confidential one, is item 12.21, the asset management strategy. Any questions? It appears not. So just circling back then to the confidential item. So we'll first ask are there any questions on the Item 12.5, it's a confidential item. If there are no questions, then we don't need to shut the meeting. So are there any questions? It appears there isn't. I'll move on to the last couple of items on the agenda. Are there any reports from the committees, Mr. CEO?
At this stage, Mr. Mayor, no.
Are there any reports from the Chief Executive Officer?
Again, at this stage, no.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. As far as urgent business, that'll be dealt with at the ordinary council meeting on the 25th of November. At the moment, there isn't any urgent business. We've also received notice of 2 motions to be dealt with, one from Councillor Hutton for CBD parking zones and a second from Councillor Pizzi on turtle tracking. Are there any other elected members who wish to flag their intent? Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. Just want to flag my intent to move a motion that requests the CEO prepare a report evaluating the city's sister city relationship with particular consideration of the cost benefit and whether the arrangement continues to deliver value to the community, including options for its discontinuation.
And so, Councillor Hutton, just to be clear about, are you referring to the Jinan sister city relationship?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Are there any other reports being requested? Not at this time. In that case, we'll move to closing the meeting. So that concludes tonight's briefing session. So I hereby close the meeting at 9:21 p.m. Good evening, everyone. Thank you.